Okay, everybody ready? Welcome to the March Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sarah Jordan, and I am the acting chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, and I've never done this before, so bear with me. Typical of HP, we have an extremely full agenda today, and it's my goal to get everybody out of here timely. As a reminder, please limit individual conversations during the meeting. This ensures commission members and applicants can hear one another, so please remain quiet until you're called upon. When you speak at the podium, please remember to state your name and address for the record. Before the commission votes on each item, I'll ask any members of the public if they wish to speak. Speakers are given 3 minutes to relay information to commission members, so please be thorough and mindful of time. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov site. If you're following online, select Agenda on the right side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see the items being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online, and they've been shared with commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with the commission, so if you've brought handouts, examples, etc. with you, please keep them at your seat as we cannot accept them to review. Keith, would you please call roll for us?
Jordan.
Present.
Corbin. Gaines.
Present.
Gaines. Meacham.
Present.
Milner. Hoare.
Present.
Remy. Whitley.
Present.
Okay, well, thank you to all of the ladies who attended today's meeting. Let's see, there are procedures for today's meeting noted in the agenda. If you're unfamiliar with the process, please refer to the procedures section. There are 2 items we like to note specifically regarding the meeting process, and they involve CAs and appeals. Regarding the certificates of appropriateness, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period has expired, the HP officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding the appeal to Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a certificate of appropriateness may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the Commission's decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Katie, do we have any news from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer?
You have a couple of upcoming dates noted on the agenda. Our regularly scheduled March 8th workshop has been rescheduled to April 12th. Gosh, we have a number of typos here, folks, sorry, on that little section. And then we have Commission Committee training on March 24th, 8 to 12 at the new Convention Center. And then I also just wanted to welcome our new commission member, Caitlin Whitley, joining us this month. And we goofed and we put that Sarah was an architect and that Caitlin was not, but Caitlin's an architect and she's a resident of Shepherd, so glad to have you on board.
I'm definitely not an architect. Okay, anything that we need to move today, Katie?
We have under continuance requests, 22-49 has requested a continuance to the April 5th meeting. So when we get to that item on the agenda, we can move that one on up.
Okay. So we do not need to move that right now.
No, and I think we can just, you don't have to motion to move that one, to move it on the agenda. Just when we get to that point, we'll announce that and you guys can take a vote to go ahead and continue that item.
Okay. Have the commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the February meeting? And if so, do we have any questions or a motion to accept or modify?
I'll make a motion to approve the February minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Poore.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Corbin. Everybody please vote in PrimeGov, if you can. Yeah, I don't think it's reflecting.
It's fine. You can move it. I don't care.
The motion was Commissioner Poore. And Corbin seconded.
There we go.
Okay, the motion carries. Okay, Katie, anything from code enforcement?
Nothing specific to report. As always, if you all have any questions about items that are listed in the report that's included in your packet every time, feel free to reach out to staff, or you can also just contact the Action Center directly.
Okay, any continuance announcements or requests?
We had none on the agenda. We do have one new request for HPCA 22-00049 to be continued to April 5th. They were unable to attend today's meeting.
Okay. Public hearings, dilapidated structures?
So we do need to, we need to
Oh.
take action on that continuance request.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 22-00049
Okay.
to the April, we're already in March, April 5th meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so moved. Okay, now back to public hearings. Dilapidated structures?
So we have nothing under dilapidated structures and nothing under National Register nominations this month, and we had no items on the consent docket. My apologies.
Okay. So moving on to cases for individual consideration. Do have a very large agenda today. So first up, we've got HPCA 20-00181 at 104 Northwest 20th Street in Heritage Hills.
This is located in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Colton Ashley for Tim Morton, Trillium Holdings, for a certificate of appropriateness to 12 revised items: 4 replace sidewalks elective, 5 install driveway and parking elective, 9 revise item 1 construct addition required, and 11 repair windows in kind required. This is an application that the Commission has seen twice already in recent months. Based on discussion at last month's meeting, they provided revised documentation of kind of the current condition of everything and the current proposal for completing the project that is currently under construction. Staff did recommend approval of the sidewalks and driveway and the repair of the windows. Staff also recommended approval of the construction of the addition with unique circumstances addressing the size. Based on discussion at last month's meeting, it seemed that the Commission was comfortable with the increase in size of the addition as proposed, so we did make that recommendation.
Okay, welcome back. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
I'm Tim Morton, address 104 Northwest 20th.
Okay. I think at this point, everybody up here is pretty familiar with the case, so I think I'll just kind of open it up for discussion and questions. Maybe.
Any questions for me?
Any questions from commissioners?
Did you receive the information from the neighborhood, their comments from Heritage Hills?
I don't believe so.
Were those sent to the applicant?
I think we may not have gotten those out to the applicant this time around. Do either of you have a copy of?
Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and read it really quickly because I think it's important. Just want to make sure I'm on the right project. So this is from Heritage Hills. The neighborhood supports the restoration of the original wooden double-hung windows and new driveway. The rest of the project is a challenge. A specific design was approved, and then the applicant built something different and larger. This is one of the most egregious cases of ignoring the Historic Preservation Commission's directives we have seen in recent years. The applicant appears to think that because they have done so much work and remediation would be so expensive, this constitutes a special exception from the rule. It does not. Intentional violation of the ordinance is not a unique circumstance. It is defiance of the rule of law and the authority of the Historic Preservation Commission. The neighborhood believes that the most historically correct windows, wooden double-hung windows of size similar to the original house, and a wooden back door would greatly help the design. However, the square footage also needs to match what is permitted in the ordinance. The neighborhood's primary consideration is the integrity of the Historic Preservation Ordinance. This case needs to be considered in that light. What is done for one should be done for others. Do we really want to go down the road of approving clear violations of the ordinance? Does it not send the message that it is better to ask forgiveness than ask permission? We ask that this case be considered carefully in terms of the precedent it sets. And so just to make sure that you understand where this came from, it was from the Heritage Hills Design Review Committee. So I just wanted, since you did not receive a copy, I just want to make sure that everyone
didn't receive that
understands
one.
what was written and sent in to the commission.
Right, and I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I think, maybe if I was a resident, I would probably feel the same way. I guess I am, in some sort asking for forgiveness, and also, like I kind of stated in my scope of work and everything else, that it is, the portion of Heritage Hills that it's in is, it's a lot of the smaller homes. If we all know the cost and everything that goes into the upkeep of these historic homes, I still think it's also important that we provide a space that's large enough to attract potential buyers that are in that have the means to do the upkeep on these historical homes. I believe we're about 90 feet over guidance, which totally in the wrong for, but that's where we're at.
Any other questions, comments from commissioners?
So what I remember from the last meeting is, we were looking at it and kind of compared to what was previously approved, that it didn't meet the standard of what was approved. We kind of said, maybe you should think about it as a clean slate, a new proposal, which it kind of seems like that's what you've provided. And it seems like staff seems to think that there is the potential for a unique circumstance for the site.
Right, and we did present it, kind of as a new proposal, and I want to, look at this from the light of it's not already built. We're not asking for forgiveness. If we were to look at it like that, I think with the minute amount that's over, we're still making our lot coverage guidelines. Everything else is within guidelines except for that additional 90 square feet that is on the building. So I think that, it should be an acceptable exception, especially given, it's up to, given the size of the original home. If we had maybe a 1,500 square foot home to start with, yeah, 100%, we don't need to add a whole lot of square footage to it, but there's not too many people nowadays that are going to live in a sub 1,500 square foot home.
I mean, unfortunately, what happened at the last meeting, and all of this has gone through. There's one thing that has happened since then that makes me have a little concern, and that is, what type of siding are you putting on the house?
So right now there is an actual lap siding. It's got a little bit of a different profile. It does differentiate from the original siding. It's a cedar construction, and it's
But
all
it's not a clear cedar.
No.
So, I mean, when I saw that, and I guess then that kind of makes me be concerned for the total project, because personally, I did call staff and ask for clarification on materials, but and then I did some research on that type of material, and I don't feel like that is actually a material that should be used on siding. It's not a long-term solution. Everything I've read, if it has knots, it's going to take more paint over time. It's going to cause more, upkeep, and it's just not going to have the life. I feel like it's not a preservation-oriented material when all of the materials around you are all clear wood. And so that kind of concerned me that you were going that direction. Plus, then and I think too, it's a financial consideration again. So I feel like that we're having to take in your financial considerations as part of our changing our giving you unique circumstances, and that I think is not something that I would like to see happen.
Okay, and we would be, willing to. I know that specifically the siding itself, we'd obviously done, in 2020, I believe, maybe 21. It was right in the middle of COVID, so there were constraints at the time on getting certain materials and things of that nature. In the grand scheme of things, if that was a main concern for the neighborhood, you know, that's something that the cost that would go into it's negligible versus obviously rebuilding the whole addition. So that's not outside of the question for sure.
I think there's people in the audience.
Okay, any members of the public who would like to be heard on this case?
Do we each need our own podium, or are we going to share one? Is that? Marva Ellard, 1521 North Chartel. I am the newly elected president of Heritage Hills, and if that scares you, I'm sorry, but been doing it about a week now. So, as you all know, the Heritage Hills owned the house and sold it to the current owner. So we're very interested in what happens here. It sounds like all of us have talked to Katie and Angela this week about this case. So we do want a good outcome on this. I think Randy summed up our feelings on this, but we also want to resolve this, as we're sure that you all do too. The addition itself, I don't think it's the 90 square feet. I think we can all probably come to terms with that. The addition itself is not very attractive. It needs more windows. It's just, it doesn't look anything like the other bungalows in the neighborhood. And it would be a compromise that we would like to offer if we could get some more windows in that addition and make it conform better to the rest of the neighborhood, along with Commissioner Meacham's comment about the siding, and make sure that all the materials used satisfy the requirements of the ordinance. And so I don't know if that's doable. I know they're on their last continuance, but that is the suggestion that we'd like to offer, is if there's something that could be done to add some windows to that addition.
Well, first of all, I love a compromise, and I'd love for everybody to leave happy. I did want to just ask, I'm sure Heritage Hills is aware of this, and I don't know exactly which windows which elevation you're referencing not having enough. I know on this screen, because it's wrapped for construction, I believe there are 2 windows on the back that are not visible here, correct?
If you look at the elevations that we provided, we are going to actually add some extra.
Will you come up to this podium for us, please, so we get you on there? Thank you.
If this one worked or not. Yeah, if you look at the elevations that we put in the package, we did propose we were going to add actually on the kitchen side, which was the east side. Yeah, the east side. There's actually going to be another window that's added there to the rear addition, and then there's some windows on the other side as well.
Maybe this is a little nitpicky, but I did see the windows on the east, and they don't at all resemble the scale of the windows in the original house. They're not very tall, and it just, we all know windows are usually paired up. There are single windows, but we see a lot of pairs in small bungalows like this, and
I have 2 reasons why we did that. One being I was kind of trying to mirror the front of it, because I do have those 2 smaller picture windows on the fireplace side, and also that's where our kitchen's going to be located. So there'll be countertop. There'll be cabinets below. So if we do a full height window, obviously we wouldn't be able to place cabinets there.
well, that's not true. We do it every day, and the windows go right down to the cabinet top. So that's not a reason not to do it.
I'm willing to make whatever compromise we have to at this point. We'll put it that way.
Okay, well then let's start with that. If you're willing to make a compromise and y'all have ideas that would settle this whole thing, do we feel that there's something we could agree upon today?
I mean, I think that staff and the applicant could potentially work through windows that would be more in keeping with the proportion of the windows that are on the remaining structure. We're out of continuances, so that would be something you'd have to approve as a condition for them to work with staff. Now, we do have the ability, when something's approved like that as a condition, if we can't come to an agreement between the applicant and staff, that we can bring that back again as kind of like another revision almost. But if the applicant is amenable to that, and if the neighborhood is comfortable with that being something that's worked through at the staff level, I think that we could make that happen.
Okay, and what about the siding? Do we want to talk about a compromise on the siding? Are you willing to address the neighborhood's concerns? Well, I guess the neighborhood and Commissioner Meacham's concerns over the siding material?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so what is our specific ask for some agreed upon conditions that would satisfy everybody for this application?
I think we could be happy with staff meeting with owner, and we'd like to see it before it's signed off on, just to see. The east elevation is the one that I notice the most right now, so it bothers me the most. Is there a west elevation? I didn't want to go prowling around without you there, so I didn't.
There is.
There
I think it's
is, let me see if
probably-
I can scroll to it.
Yeah, lower.
The west has one. Is that right? Yeah. The west is actually, if you're looking at the floor plan, the west actually has one window. And so, just from looking at the floor plan, most bungalows would have 2 windows in the bedroom, and the other would be the ability to put a window in the bathroom, because there is actually a wall there that you could put a typical bed, a typical bungalow bathroom. If you did that, you'd be adding, that's just a suggestion, you would be adding 2 windows to that side, to the west side, which would.
Yeah, and those
could
are
help.
all,
So I'm just saying, there's possibilities, I think, if you work with staff, to find more locations for windows.
and those are all modifications that are completely doable on our end, for sure.
Okay, so does staff feel like you all have a working knowledge of what the commission in the neighborhood is asking for in terms to, make this agreeable to everybody?
I think so.
Okay, with that said, does anybody else who would like to speak to this? Okay, anybody have a motion?
I would make a motion to approve HPCA 2000181 at 104 Northwest 20th with the, now I'm going to have to find the, let's see, second, staff report. And I have it right here. Okay, so the staff report to approve, let's see.
I believe it's unique circumstances.
Right, we want to approve everything. So approve items, item 12, which includes 4 and 5 with the specific findings as noted by the staff in the staff report. Approve item 11, which is repair the windows in kind with the specific findings as noted by the staff in the staff report. And then under approving item 9, which would be item 1, construct the addition. It would be for the final exterior design to be approved or to go to staff and to be approved after additional windows and changes to the siding material are accepted by the owner, and that those changes are sent to the Heritage Hills Association for a final approval. Does that make sense, Katie?
I don't know that we have the ability to formally
Okay, I just say
require approval, but
that we would also include as a condition that Heritage Hills, what's the name of your thing? HBI. HBI. Be added be consulted, I won't say for approval, but just be consulted on the final design. Can we do that? Consulted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Meacham. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Do we need to specify that we want it to, I think it was actually originally approved with a fiber cement siding. Do we want to specify wood
That would be-
siding?
That would be fine.
So we can just leave
Would
that
you
as
rather have that?
a siding that meets the guidelines?
Siding that meets the guidelines, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Seconded by Commissioner Poor. Can everyone please vote in PrimeGov? Okay, congratulations. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for working together to find a solution for that.
All right, thank you guys, and look forward to working with you on getting a final design.
Okay, so item 2 on our cases for individual consideration has been moved, so that takes us on to HPCA 22-00138, 809 Northwest 22nd Street in Mesta Park.
This is in Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt for Sam Gresham Architecture for certificate of appropriateness to 7 revised items. Number 1, construct duplexes, elective, and 2, expand parking lots, elective. This was before the commission previously and was approved to construct additional duplexes on this large site. They have revised the design of those duplexes, and in consulting with the applicant, we felt like it was a bigger change than we could just sign off on as an administrative revision. So that is back in front of you all today. We did recommend approval of the revision to the duplexes with one recommended condition that you consider adding some fenestration on the rear elevations. The previous approval had windows on the rear of the structures, or at least a window, and right now that back wall is blank at the second story. We realized we did not give you a recommendation on item 2. The staff report left that out. Staff's main concern with this was that they already had more parking than was required by code for these structures, and they're proposing to, further expand that. And while we appreciate always getting as many cars off the street as possible, we also want to balance that with maintaining some open space and some green space in the neighborhood. So I would say our recommendation was maybe to continue that or consider whether that was really a necessary expansion of the proposed concrete. And I'm sorry that didn't make it all the way to the end of the staff
I
report.
noticed that as well. I thought it was peculiar, but I figured we'd address it. So hello, everyone. Yes, Sam basically.
I'm sorry, can you state your name and address?
Holly
for the record?
Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects, 400 Northwest 23rd. So yeah, upon some research, Sam really identified that one bedrooms work better and that there's a great need for that level of housing. So as well as just the feasibility of getting materials matching the same. So previously there were 2 matching buildings and 1 different duplex that had 2 bedrooms, and now they're all just going to be the same building there in the rear. So in doing so, though, we shrunk the building, so that is a way to maintain the same coverage. We just gained that back in parking. And I will point out that the additional parking that we're talking about is off of the alleyway. It's not in the green space anyway. And this is due to not only the lack of parking in the area, but a lot of these 1 bedrooms will be shared units by couples. And so even though we're meeting the required parking, it doesn't necessarily reflect the amount of cars per unit that likely will be needed. So, and Sam does a lot of these types of rental properties. He's very familiar with these kinds of problems that occur after the fact, like, for example, a lack of parking. So, but again, since the commission had approved the 61% coverage in the last approval, we were hoping that, this offset, no net change to the lot coverage, that you all would see that and be able to approve that.
Okay, thank you for that. My main question is regarding, I just want to get clarity here on, first of all, how many proposed parking spots you're adding, but also, I believe that what you're proposing today was the initial proposal that we were not comfortable with in terms of the amount of parking.
Right, so actually, you all saw the
Correct.
revised one to begin with because staff had brought it up to us ahead of time, so we actually modified it. But again, Sam just is really concerned about this parking issue. He's afraid people will pull into the front lot, park on the grass and things. These are things that have happened in the past. So even though that area on the alleyway won't be paved, people will still park there if the need is there. So again, it's just his way of trying to get in front of a problem. But yeah, reduction in the sizes of the buildings allow for us to maintain that same coverage. So we were really hoping that that would be okay. The amount of parking that was added was, let me just count here. There's 3 there, 5 parking
You're adding 5
spaces.
spots? Okay. So in your conversations with staff about this, when you were initially discussing the proposal, I guess what was, maybe this is a better question for staff, what was the reasoning behind not wanting these additional 5 spots, the overall lot coverage, or because we felt that they were already providing adequate parking for the buildings?
I don't know if I remember exactly, but because it's been a while since we saw this the first time, but I think it was a combination of them being able to meet what code requires them to provide as far as the number of parking spaces without the additional parking, and also trying to get just the lot coverage, the permeable surface number down.
I also, another thing that we talked about is we have an enormous right-of-way on Northwest 22nd. It's 90 feet, which by comparison to most are like 50 feet. So we've got a ton of yard, and it's reflected on the site plan. Our property line is like halfway into the front yard. So there's still a lot of green space being maintained, even though that calculation maybe doesn't reflect that. There's 30 feet of yard across the whole 150-foot property that's going to be maintained as grass. And again, these parking spaces are off the alleyway, which is abutted to highly densely commercial area of Northwest 23rd in Uptown.
So what is the parking ratio to units then? Is it 1-to-1?
It is for 1-bedrooms. I think that for duplexes, they sometimes will say 1.5 for like multiple units. But I don't think we have enough units to qualify for that 1.5 calculation.
So you have 1 parking space per unit?
Yes, that's the required parking per the municipal code. But again, that doesn't really reflect the need, especially for couples.
And you have how many units and how many spots proposed?
I could probably have broken that down better, but I know we have, let's see, we've got 2 units, so there's 8 units, and then 2, 4, 6. So we've got 14 units, and the amount of parking is written on here, if I could just find it, sorry. Let's see. Do you have that in front of you by chance, Katie? I know I wrote it on here, but
I'm looking
having
for it
trouble
too.
finding it. Oh, here it is at the bottom. So 10 1-bedroom units, 4 2-bedroom units. So of the 14 units, there are actually some 2 bedrooms in the existing front buildings. So I believe 18 would be required, and we have, let's see, 2, 4, 8, 12, 14, 16, plus 13. We've got like 20, what, I'm sorry. I think 26 is what I just counted.
So 18 is required and you have 26.
So 8 additional parking spaces.
Okay. My concern is not over the actual parking, because I agree, I recognize what you're saying, especially based on where it is and kind of the problems that the neighborhood's already seen with Mondays and some of the other the businesses on 23rd. I think my concern is it almost echoes kind of in the last case of this notion of like a habit of kind of asking for one thing and it, staff and the commission being a no on it, and then coming back with a revision for it after the bulk of the project is approved. it just feels questionable to me about, like, you know,
We're
we
not
asked
being
for this to
shady. I
begin
mean, we're in
with.
front of
and-
you to get
But,
it
but it
approved.
was asked for to begin with, and the feedback was that it was an unnecessary amount of parking.
Well, and I guess to us, it was more about lot coverage, and so that's why we thought, well, if we were going to reduce the coverage of the buildings, then we should be able to get that back in parking. But guys, if you say no, it's not going to kill us. Like, if you don't want the 5 extra parking spaces, that's okay. That'll be okay. Oh, and I was going to mention too that the condition for the windows in the rear, I spoke with Sam about it, and he's happy to meet that condition.
So I think for me, I struggle to really understand the functionality of how the flow of traffic is, just because there's so much dimensioning over what the site plan that I'm looking at. And I appreciate the desire to create smaller units, to provide, you know, more options for those looking to live within the neighborhood. But even like the driveway is, and I know it's 16, but it's super wide to me. So it's like, it looks like you have the ability for almost ingress egress on 2 sides. And I can't tell, does it flow all the way to the back of the alley?
No, it doesn't.
So there's a fence?
There's a gate
A retaining wall
noted.
or something there?
There is a fence, that's right. So the rear parking is also for guests off that alleyway. So yeah, the privacy fence is on the, you basically pull up to the fence. And so those parking spaces are open to the alleyway. And you'll enter, there's gates on either side that allow you into the space. That'll have like a key access or maybe a punch code access. Safety and security is an issue in this area. Again, we are abutting to a very, very busy uptown district. And I would also point out that this is a very unusual, unique site, being that it's a multifamily site. Traditionally, historically, it always has been. And that's really rare in the districts. In fact, the guidelines really don't address multifamily unit properties.
So if safety and security is an issue, what's the fencing type to the back?
It's wood.
So it's, I mean, you're not able to see the cars parked back
That's
there on the
correct.
alley, which
Yeah.
to me is also even a concern. I would not really probably want to park my car there where I couldn't see it. I don't know. But
Well, again, people spilling over from that commercial parking, you know, so, that uptown district, just so you know, it's parking exempt. So people on the properties and businesses, they don't even have to provide parking. So again, this becomes an issue for especially another multi-unit property that abuts it for people to park on their property and do it illegally. But
Is that not a concern in and of, I feel like you've almost identified a concern for your own project that, you know, once we provide parking for these units, you know, it is so accessible from 23rd Street. Feels to me like people
Well,
are going
again,
to assume it's public parking.
these are the additional parking spaces. The
So they
assigned
are for
parking-
guests. I mean,
For guests
specific-
and overflow, like for couples, you know, again,
Right.
the required number.
That's where I see that you are going to need the parking because, and then there's going to be people that are going to have to go fight for parking because we all know that half of the 1-bedroom apartments are going to be occupied by 2 people. And so she's just counting really for one parking. So I see that, you know, it doesn't bother me because I really hate for projects to be not accommodating to other people that live in the area and have more people fighting for spaces at night to park on the street because you're also competing with restaurants and stuff. So it doesn't bother me where you put those and that there is a trade-off there and that you all are willing to do the windows. So that's my position.
I'm not bothered by the parking at all, honestly. I think it's a really nice looking plan. I just kind of want to make note of the fact that I struggle with the notion of coming and asking for something, being told no, getting a different set of plans approved, and coming back and asking for the thing that you were denied. It feels really reminiscent of what we just discussed with the last case. So I just kind of want to note that for the record. I don't have a problem with the plan.
There was a trade-off, though,
There was a trade-off, but
in that the footprints are smaller,
Correct.
and so there was more space.
There's net zero change to the coverage, correct, that was already approved.
any other comments or questions from commissioners? Anyone from the public like to speak on the project? Okay, with that, does anybody have a motion?
I would make a motion to approve HPCA 22000138 with the findings from the staff and the conditions noted by staff that have been accepted by the owner.
I seconded on accident, but I stand by it.
Okay,
Just to confirm, that includes the parking, even though we didn't have specific findings in the staff report for the parking. Correct?
I'm sorry?
Just to confirm, that includes the parking, even though the staff report didn't list out specific findings for the parking.
Yes, that includes the change in parking from the last submission to this.
okay, everybody vote in PrimeGov, please. Okay, congratulations, you are approved. So, let's see.
Go away. Is there a way? No, there, no.
I know.
don't know. Oh, it's still there. I mean,
Oh, there we go.
there it goes.
Okay, so moving on to HPCA 22-00161 at 2412 North Robinson Avenue in Jefferson Park.
This is Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Donnie Ho, Blue Diamond Signs for Casey Kaiser, Uptown Robinson LLC, for a certificate of appropriateness to one add roof-mounted sign required. This is a commercial property on Robinson, just north of Northwest 23rd Street. This is a sign that has already been installed, but was installed without the appropriate certificate of appropriateness and sign permit. So it's back before the commission today. We have recommended a continuance because the sign does not appear to be a compatible material per the guidelines, and also is a roof-mounted sign, which the guidelines do not support unless there is historic precedent for roof-mounted signs. Now, obviously, there's a historic sign in a similar configuration down the block. I will note that those properties on the right side of your screen are not in the historic district. Those are under Urban Design Commission. So from Danks to the south is not in HP.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay. Commissioners, any discussion?
I would make a motion to continue, to give the owner an opportunity to come back.
Okay, any members of the public who want to speak before that? Okay, we have a motion to continue. Would you like to continue that to the April 5th meeting?
Staff would recommend the May meeting just to give them time.
Oh, okay.
I think they've just changed who's working on this project. There's been some turnover, so they may need more time to get with us and figure out what we're asking of them.
So
Continue to the May meeting.
3rd? Okay.
Yep, May 3rd.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Poore. All, everybody here, vote in PrimeGov.
I'd be happy to make an oral yay. Mine's not showing up.
Okay, there we go.
Nope.
HBCA 22-00161 is continued to the May 3rd meeting. Thank you. So now we are up to HBCA 22-00166 at 2324 Northwest 26th Street in Shepherd Historic District.
Consideration and possible action on an application by Living Spaces for Anthony Carfang for a certificate of appropriateness to number 4 Reconstruct Carport elective. The commission approved several other items related to this application previously, including the demolition of the carport, but has continued this item with various comments and suggestions to the applicant about considering other locations and alternative configurations for the structure. This is their they're on their last hearing. They've been continued twice already. So the commission has to either approve or deny the application at this time. We have not received any new information from the applicant. So we did recommend a denial with prejudice. That means that they could not return with the same application as presented today for at least a year. They could come back at any time with a new application for a different proposal related to this work.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay, any discussion from commission members? Any members of the public who wish to comment? I would certainly be in favor of a denial with prejudice, so if anybody would like to make a motion, go for it.
I'll make a motion to deny application HPCA 2200166 with prejudice.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, everybody vote in PrimeGov.
If your voting button is not coming up, you might hit refresh. That seems to be the workaround sometimes. Mhm.
Okay, the motion to deny 2324 Northwest 26th Street, HPCA 22-00166, carries.
Just to confirm, Commissioner Whitley, did you mean to vote against denying it?
No, I pressed yay.
Okay, it's got your vote wrong, so we'll fix that in the minutes. Okay, great.
Okay, moving along to HPCA 22-00170, 1607 Class and Drive in Heritage Hills Historic District.
Consideration and possible action on application by Behold Inc. for Luke and Kristen Rebinich for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage elective, and 2, construct 2-story garage elective. Staff did recommend approving the proposed demolition of the garage based on information from the applicant on both the garage condition and previous alterations, alternate materials that have been installed at the garage over time. Staff recommended a continuance on the new construction based on guidelines related to where 2-story garages are and are not supported by the guidelines, as well as based on the garage exceeding the size of the existing garage and what is supported by the guidelines for square footage of a new structure.
Okay, is the applicant present?
John Beeden, 1135 Northwest 39th Street.
Okay, commission members, any questions, comments?
Did you receive the comments from the Heritage Hills group?
I have not.
Okay.
Here she goes.
Sorry, guys, we usually get those out to all the applicants, and we didn't
Yep.
do that
Go
this
ahead.
time, so.
And so this is from their notes of March 1st. The neighborhood is opposed to the demolition of a functional historic garage which contributes to the historic fabric of the neighborhood. Rebuilding a 2-story garage instead of a 1-story garage where other adjacent properties do not have 2-story garages increases the visibility of the new structure and is not supported in the ordinance. Development rules on adjacent land outside the district are irrelevant. There is a border somewhere, and this house is in the district. The neighborhood generally prefers single-car garage doors versus double doors. The backyard is heavily built up, and documentation of lot coverage should be submitted. It appears that the proposed garage may exceed the 50% coverage limit.
Thank you, Commissioner Meacham. I just wanted to kind of get some clarity from you. In the neighborhood comments, it describes the garage as a functional historic garage. The staff report notes that the unique circumstance cited, the specific finding cited is that the condition of the structure makes it physically impractical to rehabilitate without loss of all or nearly all fabric contributing to its historic integrity. So I just kind of wanted to get your professional opinion on that, about the viability of salvaging the garage.
Sure. Really, the brick is the only thing that is left that is probably original. If you see the wood siding on the center column of the garages and on either side of the garages, the wood structure on either side of the garage doors, that is there to, and it's probably holding up the brick that was moving. So that was added on. Of course, the material in the center column also is fiberboard, which is not a, well, it's not a good material for this condition either. I think there is another image, that one here. If you look at the top corner of the window, right, what's that? If you're looking at it the same way I am, on the top left, you can see the wood, the brick is moved away from the lintel, the top of it, and on the side, that the wood piece that I mentioned in the last comment, that is on the front of the facade there. Looking on the left side of that, above there, you can see the crack too in that siding there. That brick is pulling away from the front of the house. And as you see on the pictures that are further back, the brick doesn't even wrap around the building anymore. I believe it was probably added onto, the garage was. So I don't believe the roof pitch or and certainly the siding on that gabled end. And then as you can see, it continues where the wood fence is beyond the brick. That is a fiberboard siding. That's not, I can't imagine if it was approved, if it was done in a time that HP even looked at such things. So to rework the garage, that brick would come down, and that is really the only historic part of the garage. I mean, I don't think it's, I don't know that it is in any other way a contributing element to the history or the historic value of the house or the structures, but there's also a crack through the slab. It's not a large one, but I imagine it would get bigger. Certainly could be runs through the slab. In the last picture you have it, see it on the. Go back one more picture. Nope. No, I'm sorry. The one that had the garage doors in it. One more there. On the, you can see the crack in the dark where the light concrete meets the darker concrete, just, what would that be, south of the center column.
I think for me, I'm struggling to see how, I mean, we've seen garages in much worse condition.
Yeah.
I also really struggle with the idea of approving a demolition of a garage without even knowing what's going to go up, because we don't know what may happen in the time between. So, I mean, I don't like the idea of demolishing a garage without even knowing what may be approvable. But again, I'm struggling to see the condition in which this garage needs to be demolished. I don't know.
Yeah, can staff, staff obviously agreed with the applicant, so can you kind of walk us through what you saw that deemed this structure not salvageable?
I think felt that this was kind of in line with other garages that we have seen and that we have approved demolition of. Our criteria for garages are different than for a primary structure, so it doesn't have to be an imminent threat that is, can only be alleviated through demolition. It can be that it is infeasible to repair without the loss of all or nearly all historic fabric, which we felt like that was what they articulated, that yes, we could go in and we could rebuild it, but for one, there's a lot of fabric already that's not historic anyway, and then what historic fabric does remain would likely be lost and would have to be replaced if it were to be repaired and essentially be rebuilt. So we felt like it was in line with that criterion.
Okay. I agree with Commissioner Porsche's sentiment that, you know, we just had one of these recently where a demo had been approved like 5 years ago and no agreement was ever reached about the garage. So I do, honestly, for your sake and your client's sake, would not really support a demolition without some pretty clear movement towards what was going in its place. But any other comments related to that from the commission or the garage proposal?
I just have a question to staff on how the decision was made that it was to do a two-story here when there's not an adjacent.
Staff did not recommend approval for the two-story, did you?
Oh, they didn't
No,
recommend.
yeah, we recommended continuance on the garage based
Well,
on that and on the
continuance,
size.
yeah, okay.
So I think that's my heartburn, is doing a continuance, approving demolition before we even know
Oh, right.
what is going to be approved.
I agree.
Well,
I think
we know
need
what's
have
going to
a
be
definitive
approved.
plan.
We do know what's going to be approved. We will be approving it, so he couldn't build anything.
Assuming they actually come back with a proposal.
Then it
Well,
would-
but
they
then
may
it's on
not.
them. They've demoed something that was
Right.
largely non-historic and now they don't have a garage. So my guess is an applicant
Well-
would not do that anyway.
It was challenging, I mean, not to compare to, like, the
Yeah.
one that you mentioned, but it made it challenging to a future property owner because somebody demolished and then, I don't know, I would like to see it holistically, the
Yeah.
whole.
To play devil's advocate, I will say that even if you approve a demolition and a new construction all in one vote, there is nothing to require them to build what you approve. So once they have the demolition approved, an applicant can do that and never build the garage back. I know it's comforting to know this is what we're approving to go back in its place, but we can't hold them to that. We can't hold a future owner to that. So in some ways, it doesn't.
I understand
matter.
that, but I feel like there's also a CA of record that at least something was approved, like something was approved.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Somebody
There's
could build
some,
it.
yes.
I mean, my concern is more for you and your client that if we approve the demo and y'all go out and do it and then you come back assuming, you know, whatever you're proposing is going to get approved, suddenly, I mean, best case, you've got two different timelines because your demo permit expires a year from today and then the construction permit expires a year from next month.
I appreciate that and I understand that and I assume that we are moving toward a continuance. But I believe that what I submitted had the plans for the second-story garage.
Yes, it did.
do?
I think staff and the neighborhood was
And-
uncomfortable
But they
with
were
the two-story.
asking, someone was asking, they don't want to know. Then I don't understand the comment
I think
about.
the assumption was we will continue the two-story garage for today.
Sure.
So in theory, you don't know what you're going to get approved before we allow you to demo this structure.
Okay.
So, you know, if for whatever reason, we just can't ever work out an agreement, but we've got this demo permit, that's a less than desirable outcome for everyone.
I agree with that. Then what is, we are not discussing then the proposed two-story garage?
Yeah, I think we should absolutely discuss
Okay,
the
okay.
garage and get some feedback on that. Tell us about it.
Well, I don't have what you have. So I'm not sure which, there were revisions made.
I do have I do have the packet on my screen, and I can share my screen if there's a particular image you'd like me to pull up.
Well, I don't know what we're asking about. What questions do I need to answer about the garage?
For me, the appropriateness of the two-story garage in replace of a one-story. And I think there were other concerns that staff had that needed to still be solved.
Thank you.
So, sorry, I was trying to find the specific findings staff noted so that you could be aware of them. So for the continuation of the garage, staff's concerns were that, let's see, well, additional information is very generic. So I think the size is of concern in general. The footprint is larger than we would typically allow, and the lack of an original structure that would support replacing it with a two-story is of particular concern.
Okay.
They've also got some notations on here about spacing and sizing of window and door openings, wanting solid wood doors or wood doors with metal frames, and solid wood pedestrian doors.
Okay.
Commissioners, any specific questions about the two-story garage proposal?
I mean, it appears that the guidelines don't support having a two-story garage here, correct?
That's my interpretation of the
So-
staff report.
Based on that, then that would be one, according to the guidelines. The next would be the
Okay.
footprint, which we usually do garages at 450. And
Okay.
you're at
Okay. I think
700.
that this picture is probably a good picture in what you see, what is the house behind it. I know you say that it's not historic preservation, so it doesn't matter, but it matters to the people who live there and who are looking back in the yard. That is I guess, what is it, unique circumstances here are that it backs up to, this yard backs up to the side yard and puts the primary structure, a two-story structure, which is a duplex, again, not in historic preservation, but puts that in the proximity that a two-story garage would be had it been a traditional lot where the house backs up. The distance between and what you see there, I mean, from the pool. I mean, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, the white structure there with the black windows and the roof, that is the two-story duplex. That's the side of the two-story duplex that is against the backyard of this property. The closest, I think it's in one of the sheets, an additional information, I think, but it's to 24 feet, which is more of an alley easement. Yeah, ooh, that's not very clear. Is there another picture like that I have of that? That's,
One question that I have is
okay. Oh, it has the same? Okay. Okay.
am I on? Is the footprint of if the proposed two-story, does it go straight up? So you have the garage and you have the old, like, servants' quarters. So does it just go straight up from there? And that's,
Yes.
like, the footprint is the same. You're just going up another story?
The footprint, I believe, is 3 feet wider, and basically it was the stairwell, and then we had it drawn on the exterior, and then we incorporated it into
3 feet towards
under
the
roof.
pool?
Correct.
Okay.
You can see the temporary fencing there. There's actually a curb, a step down there too. If you go beyond that, right, and then toward the brick. There's a step down, right, you can't really see it, but there's a curb. So the garage is here and the pool deck is here.
So the garage is basically the same size, you're just going, are you making that like?
Garage is,
It's going to be about 60 square feet larger, correct?
yeah, 3 feet wider, where the door and the window are on this side and that gable, 3 feet toward the pool.
Okay, do we have, since this was a pretty recent CA for, I'm assuming for that pool, oh, nope, that was not for the pool. Sorry, I was reading through, so the pool was approved in 2021. Do we have current lot coverage for this house or proposed lot coverage for this house?
I believe it's in there.
For this site plan, rather?
And the lot coverage doesn't really change because the entire area surrounding the garage is already paved.
Yes.
It changes in one way, and I believe that it is marked on the pool when it was approved. Yeah, so This artificial turf here is actually, it is artificial turf, but it is on a porous substrate, right? It is on a, it's decomposing granite, so it does absorb. And I don't know if that was part of the CA for the pool or not, but it is artificial turf, but it is green permeable is the word I was looking for.
Okay.
But no, we do not change the coverage, and I do not see a coverage percentage in.
Okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
Oh, I was just going to ask any members of the public, so if you want to speak
Yeah,
before that, go
and
ahead.
the other question I have is the decision to do a double door as opposed to 2 single doors for the garage door.
Mhm. You would prefer a double door?
No, yeah, what was your decision for that, for doing a double door as opposed to 2 single doors, which is what is currently there?
Well, as it was a new structure, if we built the new structure, it is a new structure, and of course, those are certainly more conducive to pulling in and out of. And anyone that lives in a historic neighborhood knows what an 8-foot wide garage door does, or how it's difficult it is for in and out. But I mean, if we wanted 2 garage doors there, if that was something that we wanted, then I'm sure the owners would be fine with that.
Do we have anything in the staff report regarding the, 2 single garage doors versus 1 double? I feel like that's normally noted in here somewhere, but.
It normally is, and I don't know that we called that out amongst the other
Okay.
discussion points.
And how is that referenced in the guidelines? I mean, do we have a specific recommendation, or is that Heritage Hills specific?
It is, no, it's a general guideline for all districts, and let me scroll and find it. Double garages, 2 single garage vehicle doors should be used instead of 1 larger double door. This will maintain the scale and rhythm of older structures, making a 2-car garage seem smaller and more compatible with the primary building and district.
Okay, thank you.
Every meeting, we let people do single doors.
Yeah, I just was curious what the, I thought it was interesting it wasn't listed as one of the findings, so I just wanted to get clarity on why that was.
Again, we've done the single garage door, we've done garage, so that was just proposed.
I think
because
if you're open
it's
to it, it's
easier,
always the
easier in and out,
preference.
is mainly
Yeah.
what it is. But if you said we would approve it with 2 garage doors, we would do that, so.
I think it's always the preference of the commission to,
Sure.
and certainly of Heritage Hills, to have 2
Sure.
garage doors versus 1 large bay, but I don't think that's the main issue. It just kind of flagged something for me that it wasn't listed.
Sure.
Do we have any members of the public who'd like to speak to this? Ms. Ellard, come on up.
Marva Ellard, 1521 North Chartel.
Welcome back.
Thank you, ladies. How did you manage to run off every male on the commission? I've been wondering that all day today.
Purposefully.
You did a good job. As Commissioner Poore pointed out, we do think the existing 1-story garage probably deserves a longer look about its usefulness for the future. The residents are parking in the garage now, so it can't be, I mean, I didn't see anything that looked like it could not be fixed. We've already received several calls from surrounding neighbors who are opposed to the 2-story garage, and it would be the board's position and the design review committee's position that we would not support a 2-story garage in that location. We are happy to meet with the applicant and contractor. We know these are relatively new owners to the neighborhood and review some possibilities with them, but we felt like it was appropriate to make our current position known before they go forward with plans. And Randy's here, who chairs that committee, and I'm sure he'd be happy to spend some time or set up some time with applicants on this one.
Thank you. Commissioners, any further thoughts or motions?
I would say that the benefit.
I have another statement. Just something of note. I appreciate the fact that there are neighbors who are opposed to it, but there are neighbors who are for it as well. The neighbor to the east, the stucco house there, went through a recent renovation. When I was over there talking to the owners about a garage, they said they were really interested whether this would go because they wanted to put one in themselves. They, of course, meet the requirement because adjacent to the east is a two-story garage. So if we could have waited until, or if they had moved faster and had their two-story garage, then of course we would be adjacent, and that wouldn't be an issue.
My personal opinion is that comments that weren't submitted in favor or opposed are pretty irrelevant.
Yeah, I thought so too.
You know, for
yeah.
me, I think it is, I personally would love the idea of a big new two-story garage for myself. I do think it's in conflict with the guidelines though, and so my personal opinion, much like those unsubmitted opinions, doesn't really matter. So if we have any recommendations to take back to the applicant, anybody have some things they'd like to share so that we can, give them something they can work with for next month?
I think for a one-story garage, you're in a better position because we would probably allow you to have the same footprint, which is larger than we would normally approve. So that would be a direction I think that would be approved, so.
And then in this, the last person who just spoke said that there would be someone who might reach out to me, or
Yes, can we make
We're gonna get
sure,
all that.
Marva and Randy, could y'all make sure to connect with the applicant and provide him with the contact info for the committee?
sure.
Okay.
And staff has their contact information as well, if you want to reach out to us, if you can't connect with them after the meeting. And just to clarify for people who aren't familiar, all of our historic districts are authorized to have their own neighborhood preservation review committees. Some are much more active than others. They don't have any binding authority over the work of the commission, but they do provide comments and feedback to the commission, and they also try to be a resource for applicants as people are going through the review process. So,
Sure. That being said, I know they're put up to preserve the history of the neighborhood. I want it to be noted that I, too, am for that as well. I think I put up many projects in here that people have seen that I do take the history and the historic value of it seriously. So.
Thank you. Does anybody have a motion for these two items? Oh, actually, I guess question for you. We kind of discussed our concerns about the demolition without an approval for the garage. It also creates two different timelines for you. So do you have an ask of, I think there was I guess, I don't know, staff recommended approval, but it seems like
For
we have
me,
concerns.
I have concerns.
Okay.
Especially, I think you need to meet with Mr. Ice and the neighborhood and have a conversation. I'd prefer that to happen prior to approval of a demolition personally.
I can support that, definitely.
So that would be my motion, is just to continue both item 1 and 2 on HPCA 22000170 to the April 5th or the May 3rd. Which meeting would you prefer? Next month, or when would you have to have?
By next Tuesday.
And deadline is what? I need more time than that then.
Okay,
So,
May 3rd.
So the May 3rd meeting,
Yeah.
that would be my motion.
thank you.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, can everybody please vote in PrimeGov? I think we may need to. Oh.
But it's not saying who moved it.
Can you see our votes?
All except Whitley.
Oh,
Yeah, mine hasn't come up either.
okay. Do we need to vote orally, or can we just get Commissioner Whitley to vote orally?
Yep, how do you vote?
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, the motion carries, and we will see you on May 3rd. Thank you. Okay, moving along to HPCA 23-00004, 601 Northwest 42nd Street in Crown Heights.
Consideration and possible action on an application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Mary Ellen Kilpatrick for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct new garage with apartment and narrow covered patio elective. This was on the commission's agenda previously, was continued with basically no discussion because the applicant was not able to attend the meeting. Staff has met with the applicant and talked about the staff report recommendations and talked about some possible changes to the design, but they wanted to come back with the original proposal and get feedback from the commission before making any further revisions to the design. Staff's main concern with the proposal was simply the massing and kind of the proportions of the roof of the proposed new garage. There's dormers and gable windows on multiple sides that gives it a more grand, large presence on this corner lot. The size is an increase from the existing footprint of the garage, but that is largely due to going from a 1-car garage to an allowable size for a 2-car garage, and then retaining the space that is currently there as a kind of accessory space to the garage structure.
So just for clarification, it's a 2-car garage technically, it's existing, right?
Yes, it is,
So it's-
sorry. So not really going from a 1 to a 2, but going from a small 2 to a 450 square foot
Yeah.
2-car garage, and then also keeping the
Okay.
other space.
Okay, and staff's concern is kind of the roof line and the dormers, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, welcome back. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure, Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects, 400 Northwest 23rd Street.
Thank you.
You know, I think it's, when I started this project, we all looked at this existing garage and we're just like, oh, what an eyesore for the neighborhood. The commission was all in agreement that it was not a contributing structure, as well as not a historic structure, which you'll read that in the staff report. So, and it didn't function. I mean, you couldn't park a car there. So when I began work on the new design, for me, it was more about matching the architecture of the primary structure. And that's actually one of the guidelines, and it's cited in the staff report about matching the size, scale, proportion, materials, height, color, and detail to the primary building. So while I understand the concerns about the roof, I've just matched the roof pitch of the existing primary structure, the home. So I wouldn't call the roof, it doesn't actually have any dormers. What it has is just gable ends, similar to the configuration of the main house. So, and it's not a hipped roof, it's a gable end roof. So I've matched that in the proposed design. Yeah, that's a great picture of it. So as well as the size, I want to make it really clear that we just we're just under the 450 square foot for a 2-story or 2-car garage. So that is allowed for. The increase in size is mainly the apartment, and that, like Katie said, has more to do with like reconfiguring it. But we've gone back with the garage in the exact same place. You can see, if you compare the existing and proposed site plans, it really tells the story of how we are matching the configuration and layout of the historic property, but just did increase that apartment by 4 feet toward the main house. So I just wanted that to be really, really clear, like we are not exceeding the allowable 450 square feet for a garage. But the apartment did increase slightly in size. The apartment is really important to the homeowners because Ryan's father recently had a stroke and he will be taking up residence with them. So size was important to make sure that he could get in there and move around, as well as the double doors allow for furniture and larger types of furniture and wheelchairs and things like that to be utilized in the apartment. So I definitely think that we could maybe reduce some of the roof, but I would suggest that you see it as complementing that primary structure, and to modify that too much, I think takes away from the architectural integrity of the property rather than has any benefit. As well as the real purpose of doing a half story up there too is for just additional attic storage, so that the windows really just provide much needed natural light into that attic space. Because even though the 450 square feet, we know will park 2 cars, it's pretty much all you'll get in there. It's not a lot of storage. So that was our whole goal in the new proposal. So I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns you have.
So this south elevation of the house that's on the screen right now, I mean, the left half of that is really irrelevant, right? This is just kind of a
Oh yeah, that left,
funny
that's a
angle.
different
Like it's
building.
hard
Yeah.
to say. Yeah,
They
it
are
took
very
me a
close.
second to reconcile that.
Yeah, there's not even 5 feet between the two
Yeah.
houses.
Okay.
But yeah, you can see here though how the roof of the main structure, they all come to that gable end point. And so you have this really tall gable end, and we match that in the proposed.
And how tall is the proposed structure?
It's a little over 19 feet. It's like 19'8", I believe. It is, yeah, I think that's what we came up with, 19'8". And again, that also matches the height of the main structure's roof. So it's elevated like 2 feet with a crawl space below. So we just match that roof line again to have some real cohesiveness between the two structures.
So it's the same height as the existing residence?
Yeah, it's actually
The roof line?
the bottom of the roof, so the fascia
Okay.
all aligns, but
Okay.
the overall height is lower than the main house.
Okay, okay.
So is this technically like a 1.5 story garage? I mean, could you in theory create usable space on that second story?
Oh, no,
Living
it won't.
space?
No, because we don't have a stair. There's no really room to do one. You'll see in the floor plan, we're gonna just do a pull-down attic stair out of the garage. I mean, this is their only storage for the whole space, since we know that that apartment will not be used as storage. It'll actually be used for a guest.
I don't think I was here for the first round of, I guess for the demolition approval maybe. So this is the first time I'm seeing it, but I don't have any heartburn with the way it looks especially compared to the first, what was existing.
It was horrible. Vinyl
It does seem
siding.
to be compatible, the design, to the residents, so I don't see really any heartburn, that it doesn't provide any heartburn to me, but
Can staff speak to the height? I'd also just like to make sure we're fully understanding what the recommendations are with regard to a 1.5 story garage versus a 2 story or a 1 story, because I remember this coming up in the sort of recent past, that we had one that was a 1 story and somebody was trying to replace it with a 1.5 story, I believe in Mesta Park. It might have been yours, I think, on Dewey and 17th, maybe? Fallon? So does staff have a specific recommendation about 1.5 story garages versus 2 story?
So the guidelines talk about in places where a 2-story garage would not be allowed, that it may be appropriate to construct a 1.5-story garage, and I'm not finding the guideline right at this moment, but essentially
I've got
that
it
it's
right
still in keeping with the massing and proportion and character of other surrounding 1-story garages. And I do think this one does a nice job at that. Sometimes when people they're really trying to get a 2-story and they try to squeeze it down just enough to qualify as a 1.5-story, the proportions can get really strange. And we have kind of like a cyclops face with, so this is probably more what we would want to see with a 1.5. We did talk with Holly previously about the effort to align the roof with the historic house. A lot of times our garages are shorter than the house because it's serving a different function. It's, at grade, it's not raised up a couple of steps for a porch. So that if the commission felt like, well, maybe it's a little on the tall side, that would be one thing to think about. But
I'm not offended by the height or the design personally. It does seem like we are missing there is some additional information that staff is asking for. Light fixtures, gutters, downspouts, mechanical equipment, overhead doors.
Yeah, and to address that, the only thing that I really think probably is missing from this was those are recessed panels on the garage. So yeah, we're really trying to emulate the look of a historic garage with 2 separate single doors, recessed panels, you know, painted wood veneer, all those things. And I'm happy to work with staff on any additional documents. I think from this, after we met and I missed the last month's meeting, I got them some window and door brochures. I hadn't really considered downspouts yet, but I mean, that's something I can work with staff happily to get them everything that they need.
yeah, we just try to call out all those little bits and pieces to make sure we get them included, so you don't have to come back in 6 months and, you know, oh, I forgot all the mechanical equipment.
Can you speak to why staff is recommending a continuance versus an approval with conditions?
We had, as we kind of introduced, we were concerned that the massing, the form of it was more, high style is probably too much, but that was more kind of prominent on this corner location than the existing very modest garage. That it was, you know, expanding beyond an existing garage that we have documentation for. I do think, as was discussed, there was, and as is noted in the staff report, this garage is not present on the 1955 Sanborn map. So as opposed to a garage that was built contemporary to the house, we perhaps have less concern about matching, approximating the existing garage in this case. But that was what we were looking at, is we have an existing garage, how close are we getting to what that existing form and proportion is, as well as just looking around at the surrounding neighborhood and surrounding kind of very modest, very small garages.
But there are certainly 1.5 and 2-story present on the street and in the overall neighborhood.
Commissioners, any additional follow-up or opinions, questions? Any members of the public wish to speak? Commissioners, any last questions or a motion?
I will make a motion to approve HPCA 230004 with the required obligation that you get the additional information to staff and work with staff for that additional information.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Poore. Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Corbin. Everybody vote in PrimeGov.
Commissioner Whitley, what's your vote?
Who?
Yeah, mine's not coming up. I need to vote orally again. Just yay.
Okay, the motion carries, so congratulations. See you back with your next project next month. All right, moving on to HPCA 23-00011, 808 Northwest 17th Street in Mesta Park.
Consideration and possible action on application by Brian Wilkerson. Next phase, for certificate of appropriateness to 4, install new railing at side porch elective, and 5, install vent at chimney elective. This is a porch where a portion of the porch has a roof, a portion of it does not. The portion without a roof does not have a railing. We don't know whether it historically did not have a railing or whether that railing was lost to the elements over time. The existing railing on the covered portion of the porch is not the original railing, so the applicant proposes to install new railing, including on the portion where there is currently not a railing. The height of the porch above grade appears to warrant a railing for safety reasons, and the guidelines do support, installing new features that are compatible with the existing structure when we don't know what was there historically. We did recommend approval for that. Staff recommended continuance on the installation of the vent at the chimney, and that's largely due to just concern about ensuring that we have really detailed documentation of how that would be installed, and that the masonry would be protected and would be maintained, and just that all of the work that goes into installing a new feature within a brick chimney is done correctly, and that we know what that's going to look like.
Okay, thank you. Hello, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Brian Wilkerson, 808 Northwest 17th.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Certainly, I can understand the justification for the unique circumstance for the railing. If you have anything to add about staff's concerns over the chimney vent, might be beneficial before our discussion.
I mean, I talked to the people, and I mean, they said they didn't have any, they said they've done it many times as far as adding it to the masonry and sealing it.
Could you tell us what it's for?
For a fireplace in the master bedroom. There's the existing chimney, but they can't use it because it's too small, and Oklahoma City Code will not allow you to run pipe through the chimney. So we're just,
So
This was-
where will it be ran? Through
well, we were just gonna, they said they can directly go out the room just through the chimney that's there. It'd just be the actual vent sticking out of the chimney.
Oh, okay.
And I proposed we could, paint it the same color as the chimney so it kind of disappears.
Okay.
It's about 12 inches by 14.
Is it the chimney people installing it? Or?
Yeah,
Okay, so,
So staff's only,
the fireplace company. Yeah.
was staff's only concern safety? I mean, I know we mentioned preservation of the historic brick, but I'm assuming if it's a licensed fireplace company who's doing the installation, that's probably already something they're aware of.
I think that, and kind of knowing what the finish would be, or, are we going to have big
It'd just
globs
be
of,
the actual, it'll
product
be
that's
just the
sealing it
vent,
in?
like the actual vent cap that sticks out, and that's why I said I could paint it the same color, paint it the same color as the chimney.
would you describe it as kind of an oversized dryer vent?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think it's about 12 by 14.
12, okay.
Staff might
think
be
it says-
comfortable with like some documentation from an installation that's already been done of here's a photo of one that's on a chimney and how it's attached, and
mean, I would
just to have a better
Well,
sense
the
of
pipe
what-
actually goes, it'll pipe through the actual chimney, so
Through.
it
Right,
won't
it's kind of
necessarily
like
attach to
installing
it.
one in a brick wall.
Yeah,
Only
just like going
on
through-
this one, they're gonna go, it has to go, the chimney is on the outside.
Yeah, I mean,
instead
they're
of-
always going through an exterior. It'll be the
Right.
same concept, just masonry instead of, I mean, they go through brick all the time, through brick houses. So it's the same concept.
Okay. Any members of the public who'd like to speak to this? Commissioners, any follow-up questions or perhaps a motion?
I would make a motion to approve HPCA 23000011 at 808 Northwest 17th with the specific findings as noted by the staff in the staff report, and the unique circumstances for the railing and for the applicant to provide some additional information to staff. It could be something from maybe photographs from the installer showing similar, or showing a vent through brick, so we could have that. And so I think for us, it's like if somebody is reviewing, did the work get done, then it will look like that picture.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Poore. Okay, if you would all please vote in PrimeGov.
Thank you.
Whitley, yay or nay?
Yeah, orally, I'll vote yay.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations. Moving on, let's see, where are we? HPCA 23-00012, 806 Northwest 16th Street, also in Mesta Park.
This is consideration and possible action on application by Mike Patterson, AMMP Studio LLC, for David Howell for a certificate of appropriateness to, now, I'm not going to read all 12 items, but they are constructing a deck at the rear of the house and then making a number of other improvements to the backyard, including pool, trellis, swimming pool slide, etc. Staff did recommend approval of all items, although a number of considerations and conditions were included. Those largely involve the fence material at the back of the property that is intended to serve as a trellis. Staff took that to be a chain link product, and we have guidelines about chain link and how tall those fences can be. They're limited to 4 feet in height, and did include a condition that that material be altered to something more consistent with the guidelines. Similarly, staff was concerned that the railing material at the proposed deck, which is also that metal product, was not compatible with the historic structure, and that recommended a condition that an alternate material be proposed for that. And then finally, just confirming documentation of the height of the pergola above, not just from grade, but from the finished floor height of the house, because we have guidelines specifically addressing that and the relationship between the pergola and the primary structure.
Okay, thank you. My screen appears to be kind of frozen. Is anyone else's? Yes, okay. I don't know if we want to wait until until the commission can access their packets online.
Yeah, mine's working.
No. There we go. Okay. Is the applicant present?
Hi, I'm Mike Patterson with AMP Studio. Address is 3847 South Boulevard. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. The one thing I would like to talk about is metal mesh and the definition that's in the guidelines, if you want to talk about that for a second.
Okay.
I disagree with the staff that it's a chain link product. Chain link is usually a thicker gauge metal that's galvanized and very sightly. In our correspondence, I took some pictures of the Bradford house, which uses the same stainless steel metal mesh that's clamped together, not interwoven as described in the guidelines. And the material selected because it's great for a trellis, so that way ivy can climb up that trellis material. And then it's also very transparent, which is what I tried to demonstrate with the photos of the Bradford house project. And then concerning that guardrail, we want to use that same material there because it's a very transparent material, and with the pool, we're on an elevated deck. And so I did a sightline study that if somebody's standing at the grill on top of the deck looking at the pool, they can only see the back 4 feet over the top of the rail. So it's important to us to have a material that is very transparent so you can see the whole surface of the pool. And so that's why we recommended this material, because it's very light and transparent. And it also serves as a trellis for growing vines to create a privacy screen wall.
So we're, in theory, proposing the trellis for the deck railing and for the back fencing, correct?
I'd call it a screen wall, but yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I can personally definitely see the difference. I mean, one problem is the Bradford house is it's not under our purview.
Sure.
So, using it as a precedent, certainly a good example.
Yeah, this image shows it both as railing and then also as trellis, same as we're trying to propose here at this home.
Katie, do you want to speak to why staff is, why we are in conflict with the applicant regarding whether I'm sorry for the disco.
Okay.
Why we are in conflict with the applicant's definition of, chain link, trellis, screening, et cetera?
So let me see if we've got language here. So I would say we've got two different concerns. One is the trellis at the rear and using this product as a screen wall with the landscaping on it. I think on that piece for staff, it was really a technical evaluation of, we have these guidelines about fencing. This is something that the location of it, the use of it, the function of it, we would consider it a rear fence. And the guidelines say these are the heights, these are the materials that are allowed for a rear fence. So now, those guidelines for fencing are for an administrative approval. The commission can approve fencing at the commission level that doesn't meet those guidelines if you feel that it's appropriate for a variety of reasons. So certainly using that product as a trellis to grow landscaping, at the rear yard. The applicant did bring it down to 8 feet in height after initially proposing a taller height, which is consistent with what we typically allow for a rear fence. For the porch railing, we always look at back porches, back decks, additions, and we want those materials to be consistent and compatible with the historic structure. So we didn't feel that that material met those criteria. You would not have seen a modern metal product like this on a railing on a porch or a deck on a historic structure. I think there are other more traditional products out there. As you can see, oh, sorry, I'm still showing my screen, guys. I should have flipped back over to, let me find so, as you can see in the image at the Bradford, those are a traditional kind of picket style porch railing that you can see through quite well. And something like that might be more in keeping with a back deck addition. So kind of two different lines of thought on the use of that product.
This is already a pretty heavily covered lot of pavement. Do we have any specific numbers on whether this increases, decreases, remains the same?
Yes, it does increase the lot area coverage. I think it went from 64% to 71.
That's probably the
But-
highest I've heard of, like, in my time on this commission.
And that includes a pool. So a pool addition is in the home, so that increases the lot coverage as well.
So with the pool, we think we're at 71%?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, on this, I left it as an approval for you all, but there were some questions about the lot coverage, since they did change some of it to semi-permeable. So I was wanting it to leave it to you all to decide what was appropriate here, whether or not it would increase it by that much. My calculations were 58% up to about 64 to 70%.
Currently or proposed?
Currently at 58%.
Okay, up to 64 to 71
Yes,
proposed.
depending on how
Okay.
much we give an allowance for the semi-permeability.
My personal opinion is that anything that's not like a growing organic matter contributes to lot coverage, because I think that that's what is impactful in terms of a historic standard. But I know that's a gray area.
Yes.
Katie, what does staff use to calculate permanent? Do we?
So this is what we do struggle with. I mean, obviously, when it's a building or when it's concrete or when it's a solid, a truly impermeable surface, that counts towards coverage. When people propose other kinds of, pavers, artificial turf, different
Pool-
materials like that,
Is the
it's not.
pool, how's the pool
So
calculated?
the pool is considered impermeable because even though it is holding
Right.
water, it's a hard surface that once the pool's full, it's going to overflow and it's going to flood. So.
Is there any space, and I apologize if you have a lovely thorough packet and it's a
okay.
lot of items, but is there any, organic green matter in this backyard at all?
I mean, what you see here is just about the backyard as it is
Right,
now.
I mean,
There's
sorry,
not
in the
much, and some of that
proposal.
is going to be the pool. This area remains existing as it is.
Okay.
We're not touching this area of the backyard. And then where we have turf and pavers, that's where it becomes semi-permeable. So it's all that sits on a gravel base, and so it is permeable or semi-permeable.
So the only thing that would be growing or organic in the proposal is this little area right here with the clubhouse on it.
Correct, and the landscape area where we have that fence wall that we're just under discussion earlier.
I struggle with that. I think that historically, particularly in Mesta Park and Heritage Hills, and I'm like beating a dead horse with this every month, so I apologize to those of you who hear it on repeat. Trees were a historic feature of these neighborhoods. There were specific tree campaigns to create this very desirable neighborhood with these sidewalks and these canopies. I realize this is in the backyard, but the tree campaigns were not specific to, to medians or to front yards or to parks. I struggle with proposals that eliminate all organic growing green matter in a yard. I don't actually have just a huge problem with the use of the screening and the mesh in general in some capacity, but I think when looking at the proposed view of the new patio and swimming pool, it's hard to reconcile that this is a historic lot. It's nice, don't get me wrong, it's nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, but it feels very harsh without any sort of greenery or, I agree. Like true, I appreciate, the semi-permeable surfaces but I'm in agreement with that. And the coverage seems pretty high compared to what we usually are comfortable in approving.
Even at 64, if we're, considering, I'm assuming the turf is probably what's making up for that 7% unknown.
Well, it's partially the artificial turf, but it's also the inclusion of the pavers. So they're replacing the existing driveway and patio area with new pavement, but a large section of it will be pavers. So they're going to reduce lot coverage.
So we would consider pavers semi-permeable?
Yes.
And I would consider them like a true hard surface.
Yeah, which in HP, there's not a clear guidelines about
Right.
what counts in that sense.
And it can make a lot of difference how they're installed as well.
Right, it could be significant.
If they're truly concreted in, or obviously, but I think pavers can be very permeable or provide a permeable option. It just depends on application.
And then the homeowner did want me to point out that this tree that you see in the photo is remaining through the construction of the project. It'll stay in the backyard. This one here. Those two will not. Those two will be in the pool.
Maybe we should look at the scope of work that they submitted so that we can have a list, because it's so extensive.
Yeah, I think there's 12 items.
Kind of feel like we're wandering around.
So if you're suggesting going item by item and
Just
kind of going through it?
over their list, not the one that we made, but their specific scope of work, and then maybe it would be easier for you all to answer
Okay.
questions. The first one was the elevated deck. And then that's where you have the balusters with the mesh product.
Correct.
Doesn't sound like that members of the commission are accepting of that particular material as noted as described in the guidelines.
Sure.
So, do you have a suggestion of what you could maybe substitute there?
We can go, if the board doesn't allow us to go with the metal mesh. The metal mesh is really being proposed for consistency. We're wanting to use it
Right.
both on that screen wall, so there's
Right.
another place that we can use it to be consistent. But
It sounds like staff's not recommending that either.
that's fine. We can come back with a different material. We can find something that will meet the aesthetic requirements.
I think the next one was the pergola structure. Do you want to, if you'll just respond to the comments from staff on height, and maybe Katie can clarify.
Yeah, so I think we had the height for the total height for the pergola structure, but not a height. There's a guideline specifically about the height of the top of the pergola above the finished floor height of the house, and that wasn't labeled. We might be able to do some math and get there, but we just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
we had that dimension.
Okay, I think it's roughly 9 feet. I can go back and check the drawings, but I thought it was noted somewhere,
If
either
we-
on the section or elevation.
We have a height limitation, don't we? Of
Uh,
8 feet?
Yes, and again, that's
And it's above the finished floor of the house?
above the height of a pergola above the finished floor of the structure to which it relates,
Okay,
is what the guideline talks about.
because the deck sits below the finished floor of the house, so that
Okay.
changes the overall height of the pergola, depending where you start your dimension.
If, Katie, if the pergola was in the backyard and there was a 2-foot foundation, it would still be only 8 feet high, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So if it was sitting in the backyard and the foundation was 2 feet up, that doesn't mean that the pergola could be 2 feet higher.
So even though it's sitting on something, it's still 8 feet is the height of a pergola.
The bottom of the canopy of the pergola shall not exceed 8 feet above the finished floor height of the structure to which it relates. And the overall height of the pergola should not exceed 9 feet and be compatible with the building to which it relates in proportion, size, scale, and material. Now, again, that's an administrative approval guideline. So the commission could, even if we didn't have that number and the commission looked at the design of what was proposed and felt that it was compatible with the building in proportion, size, scale, material, then, the commission has the ability to approve that.
Is the pergola, the height of the pergola, what would be a deck on the second floor? Is that what you're?
Well, I'm saying the deck sits below the finished floor. You can see in this photo, there's a gray trim above the glass block, and you see the ledger where the siding starts. That's the finished floor of the house, and so the deck sits about 2 feet below that mark, or 2 feet above the concrete.
And you're proposing 9 feet from that -2?
Well, I'm taking 9 feet from the surface of the deck up to the top of the canopy, because they want some screening, so that way when the shade is, and the sun's out, they have retractable shades. That way it shades somebody sitting on the deck.
Okay, so in that case, I think it's going to be well below what would be required, right? Because you're saying it's sitting even lower than the finished floor height of the house.
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, it would be great to make sure we have that dimension on record, but I think that you're well below meeting that, that requirement.
Okay.
So that sounds like it is becoming a non-issue.
Okay.
And I apologize to Joe for doing this. Can I ask a question while we're talking about height? I just am noticing an inconsistency here in the report about the height of the trellis. Is it proposed at 8 feet or 10?
It's been revised to 8.
Okay.
There's a note on the site plan for 8. The drawings did show 10. We'd send a revision.
Got it, because in these, just Katie and Angela, it's the agreed upon conditions are still referencing a 10-foot and are not making a note for the height, if we even get that far, but I just noticed it and didn't want to forget.
No, it should be 8.
Okay, all right, moving on to item, let's see, we've gone through 1 and 2, the pool and hot tub with concrete deck. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please? Pool and- The height of the water slide? Is that, oh no, is that in the next? Let's see, yeah, the 10-foot hot tub.
Oh, it's one of those where the items are out of order in our, sorry, I was confusing myself because we've got a little different ordering in this packet. Trying to find the staff comments on item 3.
See, they're saying,
Okay. Any comments or questions, concerns on the pool or the hot tub? Okay, seemingly no. Any comments on the turf? I have a comment on the turf.
And just as you all are looking, I don't think staff had any concerns specifically about the pool and the hot tub. It was just the cumulative effect of so many hard surface features being installed.
Yes, I think holistically I agree with that sentiment entirely. Regarding the turf, I do think one of my biggest pieces of feedback, while I certainly understand why it's so desirable next to water, I think it eliminates, if you really want the pool and you really want the deck and you really want the hot tub and all of that, there are very few options to add some green space back in, and that's one of them.
Okay.
So for me, that's a big piece of the equation is if, that's an option to regain some of that lot coverage.
I agree with that.
earlier somebody was saying that there's actually a temperature increase where there's turf. Do you have any information on that?
We can look at
When you
that.
put in the artificial turf, does it get hot?
The trade-off with the deck, though, is that I think you have to have an apron around the pool.
Uh-huh.
And so there needs to be some surface, whether it's either concrete or turf. I don't think you can put grass that close to the pool because of that apron. Another thing that we have to consider is that during the wintertime, they'll have a pool cover that needs anchors. And so the turf around the pool will need to have concrete below it. And so we're offsetting that concrete by putting turf over it, so it's not such a hard surface up to the pool deck.
I might be looking at this the wrong way, and I'm sorry, it really is like there's a lot of info in here.
Sure.
When you say there needs to be an apron around the pool, is the apron not the pavers and the, I mean, is that not like?
What was that again?
Is the apron not the pavers? I mean, the turf doesn't actually abut the pool, does it?
But there's like a pool apron, so you have to have some surface around the pool. I don't think it can be grass. I think the health department requires it to be
Right, but I mean,
concrete.
I think in looking at this, that what's around the pool is pavers,
correct.
not turf.
But then around that pool, also have the concrete below that.
Am I?
We're looking at the picture, the colored picture, and it looks like there's pavers with rocks around it next to
That's
the,
correct. Below that, though, is the concrete part of the apron. So that way there's anchor points for the pool cover.
So explain to
on
us
the-
how that relates to the turf exactly. I think we're all a bit confused about that.
Can you point, Katie, to the artificial turf?
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what my understanding is that you have going along the top and the right side of the pool are concrete pavers with stones in between, in the gaps in between the pavers. And then above that and surrounding the right and bottom corner of the deck, the dotted pattern was the artificial turf.
Do you have an
Yes.
arrow that you can like?
I don't, because
doesn't.
it's all touchscreen. Yeah, it won't let me. And then below the pool, toward the bottom of the screen, where that kind of dotted pattern is again, and then along the side of the garage was also artificial turf.
So in looking at this, there's just one strip at the bottom of the pool, like bottom by terms of how this is oriented, that would be turf abutting the pool?
That's my understanding.
so maybe here.
And then the rest of the turf is up there. I think in this picture, what I was referencing is that the turf is not abutting the pool. I understand where it
Okay.
is there, but up at the top right of this screen, the turf is not abutting the apron surrounding the pool. And
Correct.
therefore, there would be no real reason why it could not be some sort of naturally occurring component.
Okay.
If there's concrete below the pavers, does that mean that it's not semi-permeable anymore?
Correct. So I need to follow up with our pool guy to make sure and confirm that.
You want to talk to us about well, we've kind of covered the trellis. We jumped around there a bit, but the slide. So staff has recommended approval for this slide, even though it's 11 feet tall. Is that correct?
So, yes.
Why is that?
Our guidelines talk about various things, specifically including swimming pool slides, not requiring review unless a permit is required. I don't know whether or not you've assessed whether you need a building permit for the swimming pool slide. But we kind of just we don't have any guidelines for swimming pool slides beyond that. We looked at it as an accessory structure. The footprint is fairly small, and it's, set within the yard. It is going to be taller than the fence, but we didn't have much to go on with
Would
saying
that
why it
apply
was
to
not
like tree
appropriate.
houses and things too?
Right, yep.
Okay.
Tree house, play forts, swing sets, those sorts of things typically don't go through
Okay.
review.
So per the guidelines, the slide is fine.
We're trying to be nice to children, I guess.
Okay, outdoor shower, is that kind of falling under the same banner? I would assume that does require a permit, at a minimum, a plumbing permit.
I would
so-
guess it would require some, because of the placement of it, it's not going to be visible from the street. It didn't appear to have any significant impact on the historic structure or on the,
Do we have a-
character of the site. We didn't have any concerns about that.
Do we have an elevation that shows the outdoor shower like as relevant to the project in the yard?
I think it only shows up on the site plan in relation to the house. I
Okay,
don't know
and
if there's
where,
enough background information on the drawings for the outdoor shower.
okay. Okay, got it.
I do have a comment. Do you have I'm looking at an elevation of the pergola, but do you have an elevation that shows the rear of the house with the pergola?
I do not think, you have some of that
Just the
information.
rendering.
Yeah, not
Oh,
for the whole elevation, but you have a portion of it.
Okay.
I feel like we're pushing kind of our height requirements in a lot of directions. Like it feels in conflict that we're actively asking to diminish the height of a fence, but, you know, allowing for things that would exceed the height of the fence that are, you know, seemingly provided for in the guidelines, but there's a lot of it in this.
We've always allowed for like playhouses, and tree houses and slides and things like that have come before the commission. And a lot of times you can see them over the fence because you have a 6-foot fence on one side, 8 foot in the back. Isn't that?
Yeah, and we would approve, even potentially administratively approve, you know, a tool shed that is taller than the height of the fence. And some of those have come to the commission and been approved, so I guess we kind of looked at it along those lines of an accessory structure.
I mean, it sounds like right now that it's mainly the plastic material or whatever it is.
I don't think I would necessarily say that's it for, I just feel like
I
this
mean-
is a dramatic amount of changes.
Right.
Like on this, you know, the lots on 16th are not huge. And so now we're looking at a home, a garage, a basketball court, an outdoor shower, a patio, pavers, turf, a clubhouse, a pool, and a hot tub. That feels like a really dramatic shift from.
I would be in agreement, but I think it would be hard to compare this to what we've been approving for the last couple of years unless we have statistics about coverage of each one. I mean, we're just kind of like taking a guess. This seems like a lot, but we're not really saying it's against the guidelines because it sounds like most of the things he's proposing is, but when we come to this coverage thing, we don't really have a number, and so we have many backyards that have pools and the same kind of
No,
situation.
definitely. I don't think
So
that,
I don't know how we can ask him to have much less. Do you have some I would say that would be great if you could make some suggestions on how you could have less impermeable.
For this lot with?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
71% lot
Right.
coverage feels alarming
Right.
to me in a historic.
I'm in agreement, but we don't have a number, so
But Daryl, what was
if
your
you want to
final
make us
number?
more comfortable, then make some suggestions.
I mean, the number's 71%, right?
I said 71, but Daryl had a different calculation.
Right, so last time, did we do 69, or did we do 63, or did one slip by with 72? We really don't know.
Lot coverage anyway is just kind of like us, like not liking lot coverage.
Right.
Well,
So-
it's relating it back to, it's not about that. It's about us relating it back to Oklahoma City
It would be
residential
hard,
standards.
if we use that as a unique circumstance, it would be difficult, because if we said, well, if we denied it, what would we be denying? Because we don't have a set number. We'd just be saying, we feel uncomfortable, it's too much.
Well,
I
so
think.
That's what this
There
board
is-
is for. It's subjective.
I agree, but we can't be more subjective about one and then
I
have
don't think we have
others.
been. I feel like
Oh,
lot coverage has always been a great concern.
We talk about it, but we let people go forward with it.
I don't.
the guideline that is actually in the
Right.
historic preservation
I agree, it's high.
guidelines and regulations simply says not to substantially alter the built to open space ratio. And then we've referenced the R1 zoning 50% lot coverage regulation, even though that doesn't apply in HP. I do think we've seen more and more, expansive kind of backyard projects come through, but I think every time the commission has to look case by case at how much is already there, how much more are we adding, and is there the potential to reduce?
So do you feel like that
that
you've
lot coverage.
proposed, have you, that would be the other, is that you have a very, specific numbers on what was there, how much concrete was there, what's the difference now? And the other would be, it sounds like that, I think everybody's wanting, less concrete.
Go ahead, Daryl. I came up with my calculation, but Daryl had a different one based on his calculation, so.
Yeah, Mike included a few things that didn't count towards lot coverage. So currently, it's about 58%. My calculation for what would increase, if so, we just included the pavers, the pool, and the artificial turf just as not permeable. I believe it would be at 70% coverage. So if we're including everything, that is just all increasing lot coverage, it'd be at 70%. If you're wanting to give some consideration saying semi-permeable would only be about half, it would be at 64%.
I mean, to me, that feels like a substantial alteration, which is what the guidelines say, but that's subjective too.
I would also ask, so, I mean, presently, like where the pool is proposed and that looks like it was existing grass or soil. So what is the mitigation effort to prevent the runoff of where the pool and, from not going into the neighbors?
There will be drainage around the pool. That's a requirement, and so
Okay.
that will happen.
Like French drainage? or-
Yes,
And it wraps around to where?
to the front of the house.
All the way to the front?
I think so.
Underground all the way past the front facade of the house?
Correct.
Did you receive a copy of the neighborhood comments since we've been,
No, I haven't.
I just wanted to,
Have not.
since Joe pointed that out earlier, I just wanted to make you aware that they did submit a comment stating that they think 70% impermeable coverage is inappropriate and that 58%, quote, if you give credit for semi-permeable space is still too high. I don't think I think 58% is what it currently is.
It's existing, yeah.
Excess water has to go somewhere and it will likely run off into neighboring yards and or the street. We also believe the metal fencing is inappropriate and we would object to the height of 8 feet. I'm assuming they mean with regard to that type of fence.
I'm in agreement that I think it's just a little too high. I mean, there's a section of artificial turf you could continue to let be grass. I mean, I think there's a few little things that you could do to at least drop it a little bit. That's just my thought. I mean, we have a very, these historic areas are great because they, like you said earlier, they're very dense with trees, which is uncharacteristic for Oklahoma. And I'd hate to lose that green just for a bunch of solid surfaces. So I think it's too high.
I don't, well, they can't do that. I mean, do you have any, would you like to continue and come back with some new ideas next month?
We can, yeah.
So if we continue to the April 5th meeting, we would need your new documentation by Tuesday of next week.
Okay.
If we continue to May 3rd, then you've got basically till the deadline for the May meeting.
Okay.
And the commission has to continue to a specific date, so do you have a preference for one of those?
What do you think, Liz? I mean, we can do it for April. April's fine.
Okay.
And then will we determine what items will be listed on the continuance?
My recommendation would be to just continue it as a whole because all of these things are interrelated with
Okay.
each other. If you get a certificate of appropriateness for a handful of items, then you're going to end up with multiple sets of documentation that don't necessarily match, and that can kind of hinder the permitting process.
Okay.
That would be staff's
Any members
suggestion.
of the public like to speak before we start working towards a motion? Okay. Didn't want to get too far down the road without checking all of the boxes.
I'll be happy to make a motion. Do you have any other questions for the commission?
I do not have any other questions for the commission.
Okay. I would make a motion, so let's make sure we're on the right one. I would make a motion to continue HPCA 23000012 to the April 5th meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Right. Unfortunately, we're having Prime Gov Gremlins again, so we may do a voice vote.
Oral?
So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Do we need to ask for an abstention, or are we good? Okay. You are officially continued until April 5th.
Thank you
See
so
you
much.
next month. Okay, let's see, where are we?
So we are at 4 o'clock. We might
Oh,
take a
yes.
brief break and then
You might lose
get
a
through the
quorum
rest of our
during
items.
Oh, no.
Motion that or anything? Okay, we are taking a 5-minute break. See you all in just a second. Okay, back in action, almost finished. Do we need to do anything to officially restart this meeting, Katie?
We're supposed to call roll to
Okay.
just reconfirm that we have quorum.
Okay, Keith?
Jordan,
Present.
Corbin,
Present.
Meacham, Poor,
Present.
Whitley.
Present.
Okay, well, I believe we are on HPCA 23-00013, 1015 Northwest 14th Street in Heritage Hills. Is the applicant present? Okay, Katie?
Consideration and possible action on application by Ken Fitzsimmons, task design for Kristen Cole for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish partial structure, elective, 2, construct addition, elective, 3, deconstruct pergola, elective, 4, reconstruct pergola, elective, and 5, replace paving, elective. This is a relatively small addition at the rear of the structure. An existing non-historic pergola is proposed to be relocated, removed, and reinstalled in relation to the installation of the addition, and then replacement of paving associated with the construction of the new addition. Staff did recommend approval with some conditions for this item, and the conditions largely related to dimensions that we realized we were missing on some of the site plans and that sort of thing. To confirm, just as we've been discussing, to confirm the lot coverage, we're fairly confident this is not a significant change to the existing lot coverage, just based on the observing the site and the drawings, and confirming where and to what extent paving is being replaced. I think those were staff's primary concerns with this item, but overall no concerns about the design or proportion or size of the addition itself.
Okay, would you please state your name and address for the record?
Northwest 17th.
Okay, welcome. Commissioners, any questions about this project?
We do have comments from the neighborhood. Did you see them from the Heritage?
I have not.
I read them again into the, doing a great job. Okay. These are the comments from the Heritage Hills Historical Preservation, Inc., their design review committee. The neighborhood is concerned that the addition will increase lot coverage, which is currently at 67%, far exceeding the 50% limit typically used. The addition is designed with fewer and smaller windows than are typical in homes in the neighborhood. Windows should be double-hung wood and doors should also be wood. Demolition of non-historic features, including the pergola, is permitted. New paving, replacing damaged paving is also appropriate, but where possible, it should be reduced to limit the coverage area and improve water absorption. Those are their comments.
Okay. I did send some revised drawings to Angela. She hasn't had a chance to look at them yet, I don't think, but over the weekend. The lot coverage is only, according to my calculations, the existing was 55.9%, and the new is 57.7%, which is 141 square feet add. As far as the windows and doors, I think we addressed that. We had mentioned that they could be wood. We just talked about painting them. The existing windows on the house the idea is that they would match existing windows on the house. There's details in there that show it the same basically, except for insulated for the new windows, which is more energy efficient.
Okay, so can somebody, the difference in your lot coverage calculations and what is in this report is really substantial. So do we have any clarity on that from staff?
Well, the 67% is from Heritage Hills.
Yeah, so I guess, where is Heritage Hills getting the number 67%? Is it from the staff report?
I think that number is in the staff report,
That's
but I
what
think
I
that was a
thought.
very rough guess without enough kind of accurate dimensions to make that calculation. And that is entirely staff's, our own, getting an application that looked very complete and very not problematic. We didn't realize until rather late in the game that we were missing a few things that we actually needed. So the applicant has moved pretty quickly to respond to some of those requests, and we just didn't get them in time to get them incorporated in here. So yeah, I think that was just staff kind of making a guess at what we could see visually, what we could see on the site plan, thinking it would be approximately 67%. But, you know, if the applicant's got all of those dimensions and has done those calculations, that certainly could be something that is, you know, verifying that as a condition.
Okay, I had a question about how the guidelines treat additions. You know, it says in here in the specific findings that it does not exceed 750 square feet. Is any of what I'm looking at in the view from this, you know, it says view for northeast of existing, is any of that an addition?
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing
Like,
what
has
you
there
are.
been a previous addition to this home? I'm looking at something that appears to me to be an addition, the one-story, you know,
Right.
causing that.
Yes, I believe that was an addition. I don't know the year of that. Kristen Cole, one of the owners, you bought
don't-
it with the addition already there.
So how do the guidelines treat an addition on an addition? Because while we want to keep them under 750 feet, are we talking about a new addition or total additional space to the historic structure? Because otherwise there would be, if we're going to eliminate a lot coverage concern, there would really be no reason why people couldn't always just do 300 square foot additions over and over and over again.
It is kind of a gray area. It's a discretionary call for you all. You know, a house that was built in 1920 and had an addition in 1950, and then they come in today for a new addition, I think we would look at that differently than a house that built an addition in 2018 and then came back for another one and then another one. But I think that has to be a judgment call from the commission based on what do we consider to be the historic footprint of the house versus what's
And as far as
new
just the
living
numbers,
space.
the addition that we're proposing, even with the porch, is at the ground level 330 square feet. And I would estimate that particular room to be less than 100, so we're still, you know, it's pretty small.
I'm assuming this addition that I'm looking at is probably like pre-1967 if we don't have a CA or a permit on record for it. Is that kind of a fair assumption?
Don't you always look for CA, so there wasn't one? for
Right,
this?
we didn't have anything documenting this. Now, that doesn't mean it couldn't have been done just with nothing. That does happen, but we don't have anything showing when this was built.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood how we got to that 750 square foot number before I proceeded. Thank you.
Did you say that there's only about 140 square foot difference? in
Correct, right.
Existing to proposed?
Right.
Can I ask how you got that? Just 'cause
Sure,
Based,
so-
based on your dimensions, you know, that's an almost 300 square foot addition.
Right, so it's AutoCAD. I drew the site plan and used Google Satellite to trace over an image of the paving that's there, and also some field measurements to get approximate. Now, I'm not going to swear that it's down to the square inch, but it's pretty darn close. And so I could walk you through this. So, you know, I did it item by item. So I did the existing garage, existing house, existing walks front yard, existing drives and walks on the east yard, and then we did the same with the proposed. So that's how we arrived at that. We took away some paving in the back. There's actually some paving that's going away.
Okay.
The image that you see there, for example, where the pergola is currently, that paving's going away. The house, you know, the addition would sit on top of that. So, and actually, we were trying to be sensitive to that. The reason that the pergola, we're talking about relocating it to the side facing the drive, is so that we wouldn't have to add more deck or anything in the backyard. So they're trying to preserve their backyard as much as possible. And the addition that we made, we tried to be, you know, not make it a huge addition, but they really need the extra space for their kids, and they work at home. And so this is, we felt like a fairly modest addition.
Is there any opportunity to diminish some of this concrete? If we are, I guess, you know, there's, again, like a pretty big conflict between 59% and 67%. That's a large jump in terms of what could possibly be covered. Do you see, I agree that it's not, you know, an offensive addition or anything like that. It's not particularly large or anything. But because we're unsure of those numbers, do we feel like we either need to continue this, get more information, or is there an opportunity to diminish some of it?
The files are with the staff. I don't think they've had a chance to review. Have you had a chance to, anybody had a chance to look at them yet? Okay.
I mean, if you're providing the figures and we do an approval, then we could put those figures, the 55.9 and the 57.7, as a condition, as part of it for the architect to provide the information to staff. So
I'm comfortable with that. Did we have a concern over window? I'm seeing in the neighborhood comments they reference windows, but I'm not seeing it in the staff findings or conditions.
I believe what was proposed met the guidelines for windows in a new addition. So we didn't have a concern about that.
And just to speak to that for a minute, so the addition that the windows are being placed in that you see on the upper level, that may be what they're referring to. They are smaller windows, but they're for a bath area. And they're also, some of those are also facing west, so there'd be no benefit to having large windows facing west, which would bring in sunlight, heat up the house, which I know part of the goal of this commission now is to think about sustainability and things like that. So we try not to have windows that purposely bring in the summer sun. And also just for privacy's sake, we thought it'd be a bad idea to have large windows in a bath overlooking the neighbor's yard for back and forth. That wouldn't be a good thing, so.
But staff feels that the proportion of the windows does meet historic guidelines?
We didn't have a concern about the proportions on the addition.
Any concerns from commissioners or questions, clarity? Any members of the public wish to speak? No? Anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 23000013 with the findings from staff, and were there any condition? And
The condition that they
and
verify
then
the
the
lot
condition
coverage.
that staff and the architect work together to finalize the coverage numbers.
Do we need to
So it should be
outline like a
close,
specific
55.9 and 57.7.
Okay. Is that clear enough for staff, Katie, that we?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, do we have a second?
I'll do it. A second.
Okay. Seconded by Commissioner Corbin. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, our last item on the regular consent docket is HPCA 23-00014, number 110 and 112 Northwest 16th Street in Heritage Hills East.
This is Ward 6, consideration and possible action on an application by Stephen Prentice for a certificate of appropriateness to, 1, replace windows required. This is a property where the work has already been initiated or completed, and they have now requested a certificate of appropriateness for the work as done. The commission is charged with reviewing that work as if it had not already occurred. So even though it's already occurred or is already underway, the commission has to consider this as if it was a new application. Mr. Prentice has brought some photos that we said he could pass out to the commission. We don't typically like people to bring new drawings and, architectural plans and that sort of thing, but additional photo documentation that you all can just quickly look through as we review this case seemed appropriate.
Okay. Do we have those?
Sure.
And the work that was performed is the windows were replaced. The windows that were there previously appear to have been the historic wood windows, and the replacement windows that have been installed are a vinyl product.
Okay. Seems like the applicant is here, so would you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, ma'am. My name's Stephen Prentice.
Thank you.
The address is 314 Frisco Road, Northwest in Piedmont, Oklahoma.
Okay, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions about these windows?
Mr. Prentice, since I've read all of the other ones today, I'm going to read yours too. The comments from, unless you've read them already, these are the comments from the Heritage Hills Historic Preservation, Inc. The applicant has removed numerous wooden double-hung windows without a CA. The building has been in the historic district since the 1990s, and the window policies are well-known. The existing windows were in good condition and should not have been removed. This is not supported by the ordinance, and there are no special circumstances in this application. The neighborhood believes that they should be rebuilt as originally constructed. Window preservation remains among our top priorities in the historic district, as windows are so visible on our building. So just be known that this is the Neighborhood Design Review Committee turning in their comments for everybody.
Thank you, because I hadn't seen that, but it doesn't surprise me at all.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Very unfortunately, because you've already done the work, it does seem very cut and dry within the guidelines that this isn't supported. I don't think it's the goal of this commission to ever impose, a financial penalty or hindrance on somebody who's already conducted work and has to go back, but I don't see any possible way to, based on what I'm looking at right now, unless you tell us something completely different, I don't see any way to approve this. Anybody? Was there a reason they were replaced, or just, did you feel like they were deteriorated beyond repair, or have anybody who works on historic wood windows look at them?
we looked at them, had our contractor look at them. They were beyond repair. They're rotted. We had mold issues. There's a number of problems that we had with the windows. They were screwed shut, and we've been advised you can unscrew them, but they were painted shut. Absolutely the biggest problem, the reason why it's vacant. We had rented it before, and the clients moved out saying they can't keep it heated or cool. And it was in quite disrepair when we took it over, when we started doing this work. And not to sidetrack too much, but while we're confessing all the wrongs, take a look. The reason why I gave you those other handouts, we weren't cited for it, but as I was made aware that this is a problem, it's obvious that we also painted the property. And we weren't cited for that, but instead of continuing and working and whatever, I'm going to share everything I know about what's gone on and see if we can't find a way to resolve and find a solution.
We can, you don't need a CA to paint previously painted brick, correct? Oh, it was not
It wasn't
previously
painted
painted. I thought it
previously.
was, okay. My apologies.
Yeah, so it was red before, and it's
So
gray now.
where's kind of this difference coming from in terms of can be rebuilt and cannot be rebuilt?
So it's a challenge because we don't have, or at least to this point, we don't have detailed documentation of the historic windows. We have photos of the building from before the work was done, but we don't have the typical window survey, window by window assessment that we would ask for if someone came in prior to doing the work to propose a window replacement. So we don't have detailed information on the condition of the windows. I don't know if the applicant's contractor is still involved in the project and would be able to provide additional information about the condition of the windows.
Well, I personally took them to the dump,
Oh,
so I'm the guy. I used my trailer to take them, and so I know what their condition was, and I couldn't hardly get them out of the dump trailer before they're falling apart.
So either way, though, what's been replaced would not be supported by the guidelines, correct?
right. Ultimately, the windows are gone. We have, I think, had a previous case not too long ago where something similar had happened, and we had findings about, that it's an adverse effect, but, it can't be, they can't be put back because they're gone. But we still have the ability, the guidelines would still say that the replacement window product needs to meet the guidelines for new windows in a historic building.
Okay,
May I ask a question?
of course.
Thank you. And I've had this explained to me, but I don't completely understand it. And I'm not trying to be argumentative. Yet, I have to ask the question, when you see, there's one of those photos should have a shot of that one right there is a good one. So, Aberdeen, vinyl bigger than Dallas right next to me. And if you shoot the other direction, the other commercial building that's right next to us, got some vinyl stuff on it too. Go across the street, you got the same thing. And the same type of an argument I would offer that it's the, for the paint. You know, that is gray town right there. There's gray right next to us. You know, we're trying to make this place livable. And my wife and I, and that's my wife right there, and yes, I married up, I understand that. We live in the country right this moment, but there's a time that's gonna come where we're through working on the farm. And we thought we might consider moving here. And would like to make it to where it's pretty. In my humble but accurate opinion, it was butt ugly when we took it over. And we, in good faith, purposed to make it look appropriate and applying the, I guess you'd call it the law of similarity or the law of proximity. You look around, if the pictures that I've given you in the packet, number one describes the quality of paint we used. That's as good as you can get. It's historic Benjamin Moore, and it's got the primer to boot. So as far as it coming off, it's going to be a bad experience. The other pictures demonstrate from my front porch. I just took pictures going all the way around, and it's gray everywhere. And it's painted stucco or painted brick or painted blocks or painted whatever else. You're no like that, do you?
On your application at this time. The
Oh,
only
I
thing
understand.
currently
Want
on your
nothing to do with paint.
application, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
We didn't
And that's
discover
why
until
I-
later.
And I respect
That's
that
okay.
completely. And in the break, I asked that question because I didn't want to get out of line. But I also, in witnessing, you save the best for last, right? I got my experience is what I've had here today, okay? And so I'm getting on board with what's involved in terms of appropriate behavior in historic areas.
So I think ultimately, you know, we want the properties to be livable and beautiful too.
Yeah.
That's certainly a shared goal. The guidelines do support replacing windows if they are deteriorated beyond repair. So the issue is not necessarily that you can't replace them or that you can't better your property. It's just simply that they don't support vinyl windows. Is that fair to state that, you know, there's, obviously we would have, if it hadn't already been done, we would have had somebody out to look at the windows, but.
So that's where I was going with the question. Walk me through how it is that we can take a picture just like this. It's got my place in it, and it's got the vinyl windows right next to it. And how we can't look at that and say, is that reasonable to conclude?
So unfortunately, we just can't go by what other people did wrong to make yours right.
Well,
So-
but was there anything wrong with the Aberdeen putting vinyl windows in?
I mean, when you purchased the property, did you know it was in a historic district?
I thought we were in the commercial district. I mean, I'm surrounded by
mean,
commercial all over.
I mean, it's unusual because, you know, realtors in that area, the reason that prices are the way they are generally, maybe not for deteriorated property, but still even for deteriorated property, and there's people up here that would know better than myself, but usually when people hear historic district,
Yeah.
they either, you know, everybody cringes. If you tell your
We should
friend.
have I should have dug deeper. There's no doubt about
Right.
it.
I
I'm
mean,
not
if you would have
standing
told
here
your friends, I bought in a historic district,
Yeah.
they would go, you are one crazy person. They're going to tell you how to do every single thing. That's what people say to people
Yeah.
that buy in historic districts.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that, you know, that was not something that came out
Yeah.
during the process. It's extremely unfortunate because we've worked for 50 years to try to educate
Right.
realtors and owners to make
Yeah.
sure that everybody knows that. So with that said, there's just too much information out there for us not to go forward
Right.
and have people do it the right way. So,
To answer your question specifically about the Aberdeen, I mean, that is a, I think 1960s, 1970s apartment complex, so we would not hold them. The guidelines talk about replacing like for like, that when you have a historic window that was wood, you need to go back with wood, or with something that approximates the look of the wood, like an aluminum clad product. If you historically had metal windows or vinyl windows, I don't know if you can use the word historically and vinyl windows in the same context, but if it was a,
Previously.
1980s construction that had vinyl windows, then you could continue to have the vinyl windows. So we have to look building by building, case by case at what's appropriate for that structure. We do have a lot of painted masonry, and sometimes that has been painted for decades. Sometimes it's been done, you don't need a building permit to paint masonry, as you know. Sometimes it gets done without authorization. But it is not an uncommon feature, but that does, the guidelines still say what they say about painting brick. And as Angela noted, the painting the masonry is not on the agenda. It's not something the commission can take action on, but the applicant just wanted to kind of lay all of his cards on the table about the work that had happened at this property at this time, so.
Okay. Well, I think that, we've kind of given the surrounding information. Because the guidelines say what they say, the only realistic option is probably to motion to, I don't really know, does staff have this recommended as a
So
denial or a
the,
continuance?
I think if the commission is not going to approve the work that's been done, then you have two options. You could continue it and ask the applicant to either provide additional information to make their case, or to provide a revised proposal of windows that meet the guidelines, or just to pursue further action toward resolution. Or the commission could simply deny the application, and the applicant can appeal that to Board of Adjustment, or can take that denial back to the code enforcement officer and kind of proceed down that code enforcement path.
Okay. Before we move towards a motion, are there any members of the public who'd like to be heard? Okay, commissioners, if nobody has any further questions, I would support a motion of some sort at this point.
Sir, would you be interested in a motion to continue? And then you could work with staff and perhaps find the exact window or some window options, and then you could, maybe get some costs, come back to us and, talk to us again.
Do I get to move up on the list?
You actually do, yes, you'll be higher up.
You'll be higher up on the list. But I mean, that would be an option. I mean, it sounds like, if we, we don't want to deny, unless you just are standing there saying, no, I just want to go to the Board of Appeal, to appeal it. People do that. I would probably suggest that you take some time and maybe, right now, it's a usable building. You might have to do new windows in the future, but you could continue on, take not next month, but the next meeting. Then you would have 30 days to explore possibilities and come back and plead your case. Either, maybe you come up with a new idea, don't know. So would you like to have a continuance to the May meeting?
I think we can figure out whatever we're going to do in a few days.
Okay.
And so would
To the
wanna
April
continue
meeting?
To the April meeting.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you have to turn in your information by Tuesday.
Right.
Okay, I think we have a member of the public hoping to speak before we make a motion.
I just wanted to say that Randy and I, or Randy's committee
Address,
would
I'm
be.
sorry.
Marva Ellard, 1521 North Chartel Avenue. Randy's committee, or Randy and I'd be happy to meet with the applicant and his family to help them with some resources and some, since they haven't been in our world for very long, we're excited that they want to improve their property, and maybe we can help steer them in the right direction with some appropriate window manufacturers and some other things if they'd like to take advantage of that.
Okay. Next time Heritage Hills has this many cases on the agenda, Marva's bringing business cards.
Yeah.
What did you just say? What'd you just say?
She's going to have to bring business cards next week because Heritage Hills has had a lot of cases on this docket. So there's going to be a lot of follow-up. Well, I've got his card. Okay, do we have a motion, anybody?
I make a motion to continue HPCA 2300014 to the April 5th meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Corbin please vote in,
Whitley.
oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Please, seconded by Commissioner Whitley. Please vote in PrimeGov.
So, sir, we would just encourage you to go back and meet with
Yeah, if they
Ms.
don't, if
Ellard
they
and
don't run
Randy
off,
Ison.
that's where I'm going next.
and get some, because they truly are wanting to help you. So, you know, make sure that you get their information and you all can get together, because they're going to
Oh.
make themselves available to you so that you can be back, so you can turn your stuff in on Tuesday. So,
Thank you very much.
I'd
and,
like to say too that there are hoops that you have to jump through when you live in a historic neighborhood, but it's a really great place to live, and I hope that you and your wife do consider moving there. I'll be a neighbor.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we look forward to that. But I need to, I need to disengage my thought process from anything that has to do with commercial surroundings. Is that correct?
well, we do review some commercial buildings that are in the area. It's few, there are few, but it's, you know, there's boundaries. I mean, it's a district and the boundary lines have been there for a long time. So there's reasons why some properties on the edge that are commercial were included, just as a protection kind of to other properties, and that they were built in the same time period. They're part of the story. So your building's part of the story, so.
Yeah, but it is C3.
Doesn't have anything to, this is a
That was why I asked the question.
Right.
I
We
need
have
to
a lot of
disengage
commercial
my thought
buildings
process of anything that has to do with commercial.
I would just check with any exterior changes. Staff is great about answering questions, and all of these guidelines are available online. So just any exterior changes, I would just, you know, kind of act with caution.
Sure. Okay,
Like
thank you.
she said, it's a case-by-case basis. So like, you know, what someone did over here will not necessarily apply to what you're doing here.
So the idea of conformity or proximity or similarity, I need to set those things aside.
As you saw today,
Yeah.
a lot of people come in for different reasons.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. You guys have a tireless job, I can tell. So,
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So that wraps up our cases for individual consideration. Katie, other business. I think we have some today.
We have 3 items under other business. We have 2 home sharing applications, and we have our certified local government application. So I'll just
Okay.
go, the BOA 15212 at 305 Northwest 25th Street is consideration and possible action on an application by Alyssa Dyer to provide a recommendation to Board of Adjustment regarding an application for home sharing. This is one that is in an HL overlay. So as we talk about, every time these come up, we seem to be seeing more and more of these. The HP requirements that they, that the property be their primary residence and that they be on site at the time of rental do not apply in the HL overlay areas. This applicant appears to meet all applicable criteria and doesn't appear to be proposing anything that would have an adverse effect on the character of the property or the district. So we did recommend a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Alyssa Dyer. My address is 300 Northwest 61st Street, or sorry, my address?
Your address,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, Northwest 61st Street.
Okay, great. Commissioners, I don't see anything, I can't believe, y'all are not going to believe that I'm about to say this, but I can't see any reason to not support this home share application. I think it meets all of the applicable standards and guidelines, and I don't see anything concerning on my end.
Love that.
I'm in agreement. I would go ahead and make a motion unless anybody has any other comments.
Anybody from the public like to speak to this? Mr. Mixon? No? Okay. All right, a motion?
I would make a motion to recommend to the Board of Adjustment BOA 15212 at 305 Northwest for the special exception to allow for home sharing.
Okay, a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Everybody please vote in PrimeGov. Oh, Commissioner Meacham.
Meacham, Poor.
Okay, congratulations.
Guys.
Enjoy your home share. All right, next up, BOA 15301, 819 Northwest 24th Street in Paseo. Seems like a pretty similar situation.
Yes, same thing, consideration and possible action on an application for home sharing to be recommended to Board of Adjustment. Similarly, this is in an HL overlay where the base zoning does not require the owner to be the primary resident of the property, and they don't have to be on site. And we recommended a recommendation of approval for this item as well.
Seems like everything's in line to me. Any other commissioners have concerns? Any members of the public? Okay, anybody have a motion?
Are the owners here?
It doesn't seem so.
No? Okay. I'll make a motion to provide a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment regarding the application for a special exception to allow for home sharing for BOA 15301 at 819 Northwest 24th.
Okay, a second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, everybody please vote in PrimeGov.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, well, the motion carries, so if you are watching, congratulations and enjoy your home share. Lastly, we've got the, it's a certified local government application. So consideration and possible action to recommend the CLG subgrant application to City Council for approval and authorizing the Historic Preservation Chair to sign the application on behalf of the Commission.
So every year, we are allocated funding through the State Historic Preservation Office to carry out a variety of preservation-related projects. That can be historic surveys, National Register nominations, workshops, training and travel for commission and staff. It can be buying office supplies and fun things like staplers. But so each year we're allocated a certain amount of funding. We put together a grant application documenting the projects that we intend to do. That goes through you all for a recommendation and then to City Council for approval, and then we submit it to the State Historic Preservation Office. I have learned to include more projects than we are allocated money to pay for, because we often get another pot of money midway down the line for a variety of reasons. So if you think the list of projects looks really long, that's on purpose. And we probably wouldn't actually be able to pay for all of those at this moment with what we've been allocated. But we have been, we are in the midst of an intensive level survey of Classon's North Highland Park addition, and hope to be finished with that and be able to move forward with a National Register nomination in this next grant cycle. That neighborhood has expressed interest in getting listed, and then have a number of other projects included in here as well. So happy to answer additional questions, go into more detail, but that's what this is for.
Well, I will happily support a motion in favor of getting this commission some funds.
I make a motion to recommend the CLG subgrant application to City Council for approval for the 2023 Certified Local Government application.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Corbin. Everybody please vote in PrimeGov.
And I will have to get a form to our acting chair to sign because I failed to print it out and bring it today, but I'll get your signature on that.
Okay.
To move it through the process.
I can do that. Thank you. Okay, on to communications and reports. Did we have any administrative approvals?
We have lots and lots of administrative approvals. There is one that I will mention specifically just because it's enormous. It was for relocation of gas meters in portions of Edgemere Park. It's number 9 that you see with a million addresses. This, as far as staff knows, has actually been appealed to Board of Adjustment, and the neighborhood is working with ONG. They had concerns about how that work was going to be performed. You can appeal administrative approvals. It very rarely happens.
What are
and
they
that-
appealing?
Just appealing the approval in general, that it shouldn't have been approved.
Oh.
So,
Okay, any withdrawals?
no withdrawals and no administrative closings, no items for city council. I mentioned that that one had been appealed, and that would go to Board of Adjustment. We don't have a lot of information on that yet. And nothing from Planning Commission.
Okay. Anything from the municipal counselor's office? No. Okay. Our next meeting date will be Wednesday, April 5th at 2 p.m. Do we have any items from commissioners?
I have to, I'm going to go really fast. We do have a concern for some historic buildings, and that would include, and Katie knows some more information, but I'm interested and I wanted to see if anybody else was. For Taft and Capitol Hill, both are included in the, what is it?
The bond.
The
Yeah.
school bonds.
Mm-hmm.
And so for really unknown, I've talked to some alumni. Michael Smith is an alumni of Capitol Hill, and he called me. I sent some information to him about schools, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But anyway, Taft concerns me too, because I mean that is also by Solomon Layton, the architect, same person that did the Capitol. So
So
I mean,
walk us through the specific concern with the bond issue.
that they would demolish these buildings.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I think the OKCPS bond issues are problematic to the objective of this commission, so.
So anyway, there might, I mean, maybe Katie can tell us how we could be involved, but I do want to tell you that years ago, I did a survey for what was then the local historic preservation group here in Oklahoma City as a report on schools. And so I surveyed every school built in Oklahoma City, and there's information about them. So Katie has that, and she can send you all a link to read that report. And then it'll talk about the schools and the dates and architects and stuff like that.
And
It
does this
wasn't-
relate to other properties owned by OKCPS or
Well, they're
specifically
terrible.
schools?
I mean, they've been horrible landlords, in my opinion. I mean, they take a very old school that's very, that was in decent condition, I won't say perfect condition, and then they let it sit there for 10 to 30 years and deteriorate. They won't sell it. And then in the end, they're like, oh no, it's in terrible condition, we need to tear it down. When people have asked them to purchase those buildings over time. At one point, they tried to give them to nonprofits and stuff like that, but I mean, they're so important to the history of our city, school buildings. We paid for them with taxes, and we should, they shouldn't be allowed to just, throw them away like they do. And it's really not clear, Katie, at this point, what the plan is for either building. Michael Smith told me that he had been told it could be a tear down and a new school. It could be maybe using the old school and doing an addition. Taft, I don't know.
Okay, I just wanted kind of the full
So
scope
I don't know what we
reflected in the
can
record.
do, but it's kind of up to Katie to let us know if there's how we could participate.
So the commission has, I just pulled up, the commission has broad powers as far as making kind of comments, recommendations, identification and recognition of historic resources, not just limited to existing historic districts. It's intended to be citywide. That's why we have a preservation plan. That's why we have the ability to designate new landmarks and new districts, and just to generally increase public awareness of the value of historical, architectural, and archaeological resources. I think that if there's interest from the commission between now and our next meeting, staff could pull some more information about various ways the commission could provide some sort of comment or, formal input and what that would look like.
I'm certainly interested.
And it may be something that individual commission members pursue more effectively on their own through other channels, but that is the part of the role of the Historic Preservation Commission, is to identify historic resources and raise public awareness. So with this having come to Commissioner Meacham, it's also been, we're getting calls frequently as staff about these buildings. It seemed like a good time just at least raise it with you all.
Okay. Any other commissioners have items they need to share or discuss? Well, welcome Commissioner Whitley. Should have done that at the beginning, but we're happy you're here joining us. Your first commission meeting. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, glad to be here.
Okay, any citizens who wish to be heard? There's one of you. Do you wish to be heard? The commission? All right, well, you're a citizen who wishes to be heard. Come on.
Northwest 42nd.
Welcome.
Okay. I'm looking at a house at 824 Northwest 38th.
Okay.
I'm not sure what happened. One guy bought the house, went in, ripped it apart, and then now has basically hit the panic button, is like, I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm currently under contract to buy it and be owner occupant on it. However, all the wood windows at the front elevation of the house that face the street are there and are present and, are,
So
I can
I'm
restore
going
them.
to stop you because this is not an item on the agenda and they really can't
Okay, yeah.
discuss. Happy to have more conversations with you, but, citizens to be heard, generally people come if they have like I want the commission to designate this new thing as a historic landmark, but the commission really can't
Maybe
discuss.
that's what I want, Katie. Maybe I want it to be a historic landmark.
I think it already
Must be
is, and that's why you're asking.
Hey,
us.
now I'm going to be calling you again.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Sorry.
With that, I'll motion to adjourn. Well, I will adjourn. I don't think we need a motion to adjourn, do we?
Right.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Richard.